Well, good. At this time, we're going to call the meeting to order. I want to welcome especially the board and then those from the public who join us tonight. We appreciate you coming as well. We're going to start off a little bit differently tonight than we normally would because you're all going to be sworn at, or rather sworn in. And we've done it somewhat unofficially, or let's say officially, this will be the photo op opportunity. We weren't able to have the clerk, Ottawa County Clerk Justin Roebuck, with us before, and so we are tonight. We appreciate him coming, and just going to ask Justin if he would make his way to the front here. And we are going to, as a group, it might make the most sense to come down in front and stand in front and go through the oath, and that way then those of you who want to take pictures, unless those of you who are interested, do you want the lectern look or do you want to be out in front? Anybody have a preference? No preference? Why don't we, just to narrow the shot a little bit then for those who cameras, why don't we come down in front? What's that? Oh, right up on here? Okay, sure. Okay, that logo is right down below. So, one row.
All right. Thank you for having me. It's an honor for me to be here and administer the oath. So, thank you very much. I have you all together. Raise your right hand. And I'm going to read the oath. You solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, that you will faithfully perform the duties of the office to which you were elected in and for the Georgetown Township of Georgetown, County of Ottawa, and State of Michigan, according to the best of your ability. I do. Awesome. Congratulations, you guys. Welcome to a new term, and appreciate it.
Before they're seated, Mr. Bosch, anyone else, if you want to get a picture, this would be a great time. You can come right up front here. If you want to single someone else and just get down, that's fine too. We're not offended. Why don't we take a group shot first off? Oh. Okay, great. Thank you, Justin. And I'll just say, if there's any who came tonight just for that moment, we won't consider it rude if you want to slip out. You're welcome to stay or go. It's up to you. All right. It's our practice to open our meetings with a word of prayer. And tonight, Swan.
Well, thank you, Jim. We bow our heads, please. Our dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for this opportunity that we can gather together here in Georgetown Township. We pray for your strength and your wisdom and your clarity, Lord. May we do things that are pleasing to you and to our fellow citizens here. We thank you for the wonderful people that work here, that make things go. We thank you for our first responders that put their life on the line virtually every day. We pray for our national government. We pray for our president, the things that are happening in Washington. We pray that your hand will guide. We thank you so much for what you've done for us and this opportunity to celebrate Thanksgiving. And we thank you for our founders who made all this possible. Please be with us this evening. We ask for your blessing. Amen.
Amen. Will you please rise for the I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May we see it. Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn to our new clerk. I'm kidding. We have him call the roll, and we're going to see what his preference for style is here.
Looks like everyone's covered.
All right, that's an easy way. That's a quick way to do it. You can keep us guessing if you want to do different ones. Before we approve the agenda, I just wanted to make mention tonight. I know we had sort of an unmeeting week. The comments I made at the outset of that meeting, which are not strictly from the record, I stand by, and I look forward to working with all of you in a unified fashion, even if, as I said, if you disagree from time to time. I'm really looking forward to each of you bringing discipline, interest, and abilities to the table, and I think it's going to be really great for the township. A couple of things I had jotted down that I maybe wished I had mentioned as part of that. And I promise you I won't do this too often, but I think I wanted to just reiterate the fact that our role here on the board is to make our township better. And I trust that each one of us has that as our goal, to do what we do the best of our ability and with one another. That's really what we want. You'll find, for those who are new to the board, you'll find that very few people will recognize you or know your name. It's not a high-profile position, and that's maybe a good thing sometimes. I can think back when I was marching in the parade some years ago, and somebody shook my hand and said, "Good, get those bums out of there." And I'm like, "I'm in there right now." But they don't always recognize you. No, we are accountable to our community, obviously, and we know that we want to be in touch with people, but there are a lot of residents. I think we're close to about 51,000. A lot of people. I think it's the 7th largest township in the state of Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. It's close to that, the largest township. As I say sometimes, I'll kid and say, if you have 0.5% of the people that are unhappy with the board at the time, that's more than 250 people. So what I'm saying is it doesn't take much to feel like people are being stirred up on an issue. Sometimes it gives perspective too, though, when you think of it that way, to say, well, I've heard 5 people upset about X. I've heard nothing else from anyone else, and then you have to tread away and really sense the community and connect with the community, find out who they represent the community, or is that just a small fraction of people that disagree, and most people do it. So it's all of our jobs to try to be in touch as best we can, both as a board and individually with the township. And obviously, if you had not been in touch and connected to the community, we would not have got elected. We wanted to obviously have a reach in the public hearing. A lot of people would trust them. So, you can't take too much of the credit or the blame. I wanted to commend, and I know Rob's here, all those involved in the Christmas tree lighting out there. We made it a subdued occasion this year, as so many things are. But what a beautiful sight out there driving in tonight, seeing that tree lit up. It looks great. And the whole plaza out there is looking. We're going to turn now to the approval of the agenda. We always begin in asking for a motion to approve and a second of the agenda. And then at that point, there can be discussion about whether there's any items to be added or moved. Was there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Before it's been moved. I'd like to lead off with one change. And I probably should have led with it and made the motion myself, but we'll make it now an amendment to the motion on the floor, and that is number 8, zoning presentation. We were queued up with that last week to do that with Manette and Victor. Didn't work out for this time, so we are going to bump that, what I think is a pretty interesting conversation, to probably the next meeting, the one in December. So our schedules are go for them. So with that, I'd like to move to amend the agenda to remove item number 8. Second? Second. Okay. All in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? So it's passed. Now, it's still before you now, the approval of the agenda. With that change, are there any other items anyone wishes to either remove or add or change the order of, or are we ready to vote?
I would actually like to remove the items from the consent agenda. If there are some questions about things, primarily on my meeting. But then all of that is there.
And I think one member can just simply remove it. Yeah, disregard vote. That's right. So it's so removed. And I think what it is it's going to remain on the agenda, but what you'd like to do is have that as a discussion point. Okay. Good. All right. Doesn't alter any numbers. As item 11. about the agenda before we take a vote?
I have some questions on, the property purchase that we're working on,
Yeah, so,
by Maplewood Lake.
yep. And are you suggesting you'd like to, Gary, to add that as an item as opposed to maybe bringing it up during discussion under point 18? I think either.
Problem, I can do that.
Okay, all right. We'll make sure that, so just again, for the board members that are here, yeah, I think it's worth noting, I would just say this, and this is no slight to those of you here from the public, but this is our board meeting. For the month, usually we'll have two, sometimes there's one, but we'll always meet every month. And the way that this has been formed up here, this desk, it almost gives the impression that we're presenting something to the public, and in fact, it would be more accurate to say that we're almost sitting at a table, and in fact, tonight is more so than usual because we have two of our members at tables, but when we convene like this on the second and fourth Mondays of the month, we are meeting as a board. And there are opportunities, as you well know, and as the public knows as well, for public input and discussion. But that is at the appointed times in the agenda. Obviously, there are other venues, other opportunities that the public has for input with the board. But I just want to remind the board itself that when we're doing business, we are essentially here meeting with one another, and our focus is on the board and the items before the board. So, having said that, though, we always take time, Gary, at the end, and you're welcome to bring that up. So, all right. Hearing no one else, is everyone ready to vote? All in favor of the amended agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Agenda is approved. Item number 9, communication letters and reports received for information. You will customarily see the sheriff's report. You'll see balance sheet reports and things of that nature. Of course, meeting minutes. These are pretty customary things. Sometimes you'll see correspondence in there that might be from either another segment of our township, maybe somebody from the library, or it could be something from the public that they want everyone to receive and be aware of and to read. And of course, there's nothing to prevent members from, as Gary was bringing up a moment ago, nothing to keep board members from bringing up those items then on discussion during the meeting. But at least as to those who are acknowledging their receipt, the expectation is that all of you have reviewed them. And if you wish to discuss them or any point within them, that opportunity is there at the end of the meeting. Okay, item number 10. This is our initial public comment period. I'm doing a little over-explaining tonight. This won't be the typical, but given that, again, it's our first meeting as a new board, first official. We'll always have 2 public comment periods at our meetings. First one will be about the items on the agenda. Now, we used to publish the agenda and put it on a table. That was kind of pre-technology. We've generally relied on, in recent years, the publishing to the website, and even for those of you with phones, most have them. They'll pull them up right in the meeting and have it in front of them. And so you're able to follow along both on the screen, on your phone, if you wish to print it at home. Those are all options. But we want our public to come informed and able then during that first public comment period to speak to items remaining on the agenda. There might be one in particular that you want us to know your opinion about, okay, and have your perspective. One of them perhaps affects you directly. That is an opportunity for that. If you have a comment more generally, if you want to talk about something that's on your mind, and maybe we don't have it on our agenda tonight, there will be a second public comment period toward the end of the meeting. You're welcome to, it's kind of like Open Line Friday, it's one of the talk shows. You're welcome to bring up the subject that's on your mind, okay? And just in that respect, too, I would just note, I think sometimes it's a little awkward both for the public as well as sometimes for board members, because you may make a really good point, and it's not our time at that point to necessarily engage you in a discussion or a debate. As I was saying earlier, with it being a board meeting, sometimes we'll get off then on a tangent and not do our business. However, there's nothing to keep a board member from doing one of a couple of things. One, when we come to board discussion, which is more general, right, at the end you might say, you know what, so-and-so who spoke tonight, I thought they made an excellent point. I'd like to see that matter referred to the committee of whatever, utilities committee or one of those. Or I want to talk about it right now as a board. Or perhaps you'll think, I think I want to bring that up at the next meeting. I'm going to think about that for a while. Or We've got website addresses on our website, we've got our phone numbers, and of course, we're here before and after meetings. So just because your item isn't necessarily responded to, you should not take as meaning that you weren't heard, or that somehow we don't value your input. So that's just kind of the nature of how that order goes with our meetings. So having said that, this is an opportunity now for anyone in the public who wishes to address the board on items remaining on our agenda this evening. Please step forward to the microphone, and we would ask you to identify your name and your street address. You'll have 3 minutes. I think that's Mr. Barr. I can't tell with the mask, but yeah, okay.
I'm hiding.
How you doing, Joe? Welcome. Yeah, thanks.
Joel Barr, home address, 4393 Oak Meadow here in Georgetown Township. Longtime Georgetown Township resident. Love this community. Thank you all for your service. I'm here on an application for a sidewalk waiver for 303 Wisner. If you're not familiar with Wisner, it's because the road really doesn't exist in the real world today. It's an old road on what is now known as 44th Street. If you're familiar with the bend in 44th Street, right? If you're heading west from Kennewa as you're approaching Sunnybrook Country Club, the bend in the river is this property that I'm talking about. It's over 20 acres. It's been vacant land since Rick Woolhouse would say, Hector was a small puppy for a long time. And so we're asking that the client would like the opportunity to do something with this property. One of the reasons he wants to do something is his dream. He's owned a lot of property in this area historically. Been a great member of both Kent and Ottawa County, and he has a vision. And but one of the things is the request for the sidewalk waiver. The cost of putting a sidewalk along this stretch of 44th Street is really prohibitive in development. There's a significant elevation change along this route. In fact, on the elevation change on here, you can see there's up to a 10-foot difference from the other side of the street. So if you're on the north side of 44th, there's a big drop off. And so putting in a sidewalk is going to be an incredibly expensive endeavor. More importantly, there's a sidewalk on the south side of 44th the entire way where all the residential homes are. On the north side, to the west, is Sunnybrook Country Club. The odds of putting a sidewalk in that property are pretty slim. To the east, heading towards Kennewa, you've got a bunch of commercial property, no sidewalk. So we were here over a year and a half ago, requesting a waiver. It was denied. Didn't really get an explanation other than we like sidewalks. To be clear, I like sidewalks. I live in a neighborhood here with sidewalks. In phase 2 and phase 3. Phase 1 doesn't have sidewalks. I know what it means to have sidewalks in a residential area. But to require sidewalks along 44th Street in this busy stretch with the elevation change, with the existing residential property on the south side with the sidewalk, and nothing along the north just really doesn't make sense, which is why we're asking for the waiver for this particular property. Thank you.
I'll make a note as Joel's taking a seat. There are occasions, Joel, and I see Mr. Stouty back there too, where you may have been retained by a developer or someone to speak to a particular issue or simply to be available for questions. We do make exceptions in our meetings for representatives on a particular subject or an item. So, for example, I know, Todd, you've spoken at different points or just simply stood there and waited to see if there are questions. You don't have to feel necessarily compelled in that capacity to say speak your piece in that 3 minutes at the outset, but you obviously did and did it well and stayed within the time, so thanks. Anyone else wish to address any of the items remaining on the agenda this evening? All right, seeing no one, then at this time we'll close that first public comment period. Next is item number 11, the consent agenda. And this has been, as we've said already, one which we're going to go over at least this time and as often as you like in the future, very specifically. Generally speaking, these are items that, again, are expected to have been reviewed. And certainly there are items there that get removed from time to time. Tonight, all of such items will be up for discussion. And so here, beginning then with 11.1, approval of the minutes of the previous meeting on October 26th and November 23rd. Is there any board member wishes to address those previous minutes?
procedural question. Since we're going through consent agenda item by item, where, in most circumstances, we would just make a motion to approve the consent agenda, then are we going to, as we go, make a motion to approve each meeting's minutes and to approve the bills, or are we still going to do one motion at the end to approve consent agenda?
If I may, I think for tonight, we're gonna take them one, Roman numeral at a time. There's four of them, I think. 1, 2, 3, and 4. They may have subparts, but at least for tonight, let's take one part at a time. So I'll put a motion on the table to approve the minutes of the previous meetings, from both October and November. Moved and supported. Any discussion on that point?
Yes, it might be beneficial depending on the outcome of the discussion to even separate the two out. My concern with the October 26th minutes is, that it happened, the meeting was entirely by Zoom.
You lost your mic here.
Still flashing green.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. So, with that meeting entirely by Zoom, it was not open, truly to the public, and, approving of any decisions made during that meeting, is not really the appropriate thing to do. I would actually suggest the, Open Meetings Act, MCL 15.270, essentially allows for, it's kind of talking about the negative side of it, decisions that are invalidated. But what it does is it opens up the opportunity to reenact any potentially disputed decisions so that they can come within conformity of the act. And that when the official vote is made on such items, that it's done then at a properly, public meeting that's available to all, such as this meeting is, that those decisions then, I forget the terminology, they just talk about reenacting those decisions. So essentially having that whatever discussion points were, not just voting on the agenda to accept what happened, but to essentially, whether it be at our next meeting or what have you, have those decisions talked about at an open, a truly open meeting that conforms with the Open Meetings Act and the constitutional requirements. And as soon as that's done, then it essentially validates whatever decisions were made. So that would be my suggestion, which is why it's different than the minutes for the 23rd, because the 23rd, well, I guess on the point of the 23rd, my only, concern is that it doesn't seem to really indicate, it just says we were all available by Zoom. It doesn't indicate those of us who are physically available here in the township. And also my motion to adjourn was not a simple, at the end of our meeting, we have a motion to adjourn, but rather it was a motion to adjourn with a specific purpose of meeting again on today's date to meet in public at a meeting open and physically available to members of the public. So I would ask that those parts be amended in the minutes for the November 23rd meeting.
Jimmy, I asked Dan.
Sure.
Dan, according to our lawyer, did we have a meeting last Thursday? Did you ask his opinion? Oh, I'm sorry. Last Tuesday when we had our Monday, I'm sorry. Was that?
I should have never asked whether there's interpretation about
Okay.
do we follow the procedures that work that out? Yes. I'm not asking that question. And before you though, you have the minutes to approve or not approve. That's really the issue before you, whether you make a change from that and not approve them, then other issues might come. But today you have the minutes to whether reflect it, and they can be amended, they can be, things can be added.
Well, I was, from the lawyer, was that considered, did we break any laws by having that meeting in his opinion?
No. I didn't specifically ask them to review that meeting.
Does anyone else wish to address the motion before us, which has to do with the minutes? Over and
I just have a question. So, what Catherine's laying out is the fact that if you didn't have an open meeting on October 23, the decisions that were made there could be overturned later on. Is that the way I'm understanding now?
I think Kathy can speak for herself. She would say yes. I would disagree, or I would say that there's competing legal authorities that did it the last meeting. Such that it's almost something that, for one to definitively say, and even then you could choose to respect or not respect the court decide, but the court would have to decide, no matter how strongly one side or the other on that issue feels. Literally, there are people meeting all over the state in various venues and ways and so on, cities, townships, and the like, that are likewise in derogation of the law, if in fact Catherine's right. Okay, I know she's convinced she is. So I would only say to you, it's not as clear cut as one side is right and the other is wrong. That's why we have courts. I'm not sure it'll ever reach that point, Gary, where they'll actually make a definitive ruling. Hopefully this will all go away. I know we've all been hoping, but I'm at least taking my shot at trying to address what you're saying.
So, wouldn't we be better off to decide on error and revisit those things and revote them in as an open meeting? I mean, it doesn't look like the agenda had that many things on it. So if we were to present them next month in an open meeting on a different agenda and we voted for them, then we'd have our bases covered and not have a problem with a possibility of legal issue down the road.
Your perspective, anyone else?
To argue the flip side of that coin, though, the board that those agenda items were before is no longer the board that's seated. And so I think that having a different mix of people revisit items that a seated board had already decided on, and we could argue the legitimacy of the virtual meeting, but we were operating to the very best of our knowledge at the time. There was no ill intent in choosing to be virtual, but, we thought that we were making the best decisions that we could at that point. Catherine has brought up some points, but those points weren't brought up prior to the October 26th meeting. So just to play devil's advocate a little bit, I hear what you're saying, let's re-vote on all of them. But the board that those items were before is just a different group now. So that feels a little bit
There's
off.
a couple of things going on. There's the question of, first of all, typically we think of, are those minutes accurate as to what took place? I mean, that's usually the essence of what we're looking at. I don't think anybody's disputing whether they're accurate or not. What's being made, or the arguments being made, is that they may be accurate. Those things may have occurred. People may have voted in that fashion. However, it was, unconstitutional, or it was against the law to have done so. That's an entirely different argument, whether or not anything was constitutional or not. I think the motion before the board, at least as it's been made here, not amended or changed, no one's making other motions, is, are these the minutes, and are these minutes accurate? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Now, do you want to attack decisions of a prior board and somehow nullify them? I think it now becomes a legal sticky wicket. And I don't know, is it something that I can speak for myself only, I suppose, that any of us is versed in sufficiently to say, I'm willing to vote and overturn the will of a prior duly elected board.
Thanks for articulating where my heart was better than I just did.
Okay, well.
I would like to address what Gary was saying in the original question, kind of being referring to what I was trying to get at. And yeah, so what I was talking about is, I guess, maybe twofold. So you kind of made it stated a little bit more clearly that in the event that there is a possibility, whether a court is going to follow the Constitution or follow the law, that's always up for grabs. But there's 100% possibility that the decisions that were made at the last meeting could be invalidated due to the manner in which the meeting was held. And so that is a concern, but something that I guess I was assuming would go along with that isn't just the possibility that the meeting decisions might be set aside because of that, but I think we owe it to the people of the township that we represent that, this is something where it should have been happening all along, and whether we're a board of attorneys, or we're a board of school teachers, or we're a board of dentists, or garbage truck collectors, garbage collectors, or whatever. The point is, we each took an oath to uphold the U.S. and Michigan constitutions, so saying we didn't know what was in them isn't really a good reason to not follow the constitutions. So my concern is twofold, that the possibility that it could end up being legally challenged, and there could be some issues with that. We would be heading off the path, even the need for somebody to bring something up from that October meeting. And that's the one that's before us right now. So as I understand it, the other meetings prior to that might have been conducted in the same manner. If I remember my reading of the Open Meetings Act correctly, those would not be at issue legally, because I think you have to bring it within 60 days of a decision being made. So if a citizen were to make a point in court to try to invalidate the decision, so that's why that particular set of minutes would be important, but that's also the set of minutes that's on the agenda for us to approve of. And to the extent that it's also, to the point that it was a totally different board, essentially, that was voting on those, at least would be 3 of us were not present, unless you guys were present. I wasn't present at that meeting. So at the very least, I would think the 3 of us would have to abstain from voting on whether they were accurate. Not that I would argue that they are, inaccurate, but we wouldn't know. But it just seems like it would be the prudent thing to do out of respect for the people in our community, out of respect for the oath that we took to uphold the Constitution, regardless of our educational or career background, as well as just to try to not have any kind of possible legal expenses incurred later on unnecessarily by just simply putting whatever items that were approved from that October agenda onto the upcoming agenda, just to take care of those. But and again, that's a different issue, which is why I guess I would ask, perhaps I would make a motion to amend your motion to approve the agenda. I think it was your motion, so that separating those 2 meeting minutes out, people with a totally different scenario. People might have concerns one, not the other, or vice versa. For me, the meeting minutes from the 23rd, I'm just asking that, because we didn't really vote on anything that would need to be redone in a sense, I would just ask for points of clarification to be made, or especially descriptive words to be added to that, not necessarily to review anything or have to re-talk about anything that happened in relation to those minutes. So that would be my motion to amend, is to separate those 2 out.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion about the motion to amend my motion, that is to separate out our vote on the minutes October versus November? On that motion alone, are there any comments anyone wishes to make?
Catherine, if I can ask, are you talking about Carol Stolman and Rich Vanderklok and Jason Minier invalidating what they did at our last meeting, or are you asking for clarification? It seems to me that, as Jim had said, normally if the minutes are not accurate, that's what you challenge. But it seems that you want to challenge that we shouldn't have had a meeting altogether. And then if that's the precedent, what about the meetings we've had since last spring? I know you said, well, after 60 days, we don't have to be as concerned about a possible lawsuit, but it seems like we're opening ourselves up to a lawsuit simply by taking what a previous board had voted on and invalidating.
I wouldn't be saying that we're invalidating anything. The point is, it either is or it isn't valid. And the thing is, the Constitution, whether somebody likes it or not, is there, the requirements are there. So it's very clear that we're supposed to have a government of the people. And by, having, I don't even know what that is, what that camera's going to, but assuming it's going to YouTube, that was going to. So I don't watch TV at all. So whether it's YouTube, which I think that one is, or something like that, offering up information that's happening simultaneously so people can see it, is different from having an entire meeting conducted by Zoom. For example, my husband was actually here last week, and I guess he and I didn't think to talk about how to get into the meeting with him ahead of time. And the entire time he was sitting there, he was having a hard time hearing you guys, and couldn't get couldn't figure out where the Zoom link was. And after the meeting, I said, well, it was on the agenda, I needed to click, and then it, but it brought up a good point that it's unlike, the Michigan Supreme Court, when they do their hearings and they put it on YouTube, you can search Michigan Supreme Court, look, they're going live right now, you can just hop on there and watch it, and it's available for the public to see. Totally different scenario than a Zoom meeting where you can't do any kind of search. There's not like a Georgetown Township Zoom channel where you can just go and regularly see. You have to have a certain meeting link. And so at any rate, it's not, my point wasn't to try to rehash all of those pieces or go into all the other ways that it's not constitutional or, ways that we violated state law on that point. It is what it is, so whether we vote to reapprove essentially or renew, whatever the word was, reenact is the language of the statute, whether we vote to set aside those items from the October meeting to our next meeting or whatever you guys think would be appropriate, that's not us invalidating. That's not me saying I think we should invalidate every decision and of the individuals you're talking about. It's not personal at all. It's nothing to do with the individuals. I'm concerned that whatever we do it the right way. So you took an oath, I took an oath, everybody took an oath. So we know whether we knew it then or we know it now. The fact is, it's undeniable. We know what we got to do now. So I'm just trying to figure out a way that we can do the right thing and preserve. I reviewed the minutes from the October meeting before our last meeting. So at this present time, I don't remember anything that's on there. To be honest, it's not an individual or specific concern I have about an agenda item, but more so to make sure that whatever decision is made, it's done the right way. And what do you mean?
You bring your comments to
That's like.
okay. All right.
But
I would say,
if I can just, we were incredibly careful as we set this up, and we got legal advice, and I would strongly oppose. If it has to do, absolutely, but if it's to revalidate or something like that, I'm strongly against it, and I want to get legal advice. We can get legal support possibly for it.
And that's not the motion that's before us. The motion before us is just to language of accept or approve the October 26th meeting minutes. It seems like we either vote to accept them or we vote not to, right?
let's narrow the scope here. So there's a motion that's been made and supported as it relates to these minutes to split them between November and October. Let's take a vote on that, okay? Let's do further comment. All in favor, say aye.
Yeah, I do have a question as far as if we were to not approve the minutes of the October, what does that mean?
Are we going to address this motion and then we can address the substance? We have a motion, we can't leave. We can't silent motion that's before us now.
Would you prefer anyway, your motion?
My motion was to approve the minutes for both October and November. Your motion was to amend my motion to approve them separately.
You're
Anyone opposed? All right, so we can deal with them separately. Now to the question of them. Why don't we do this too, just to narrow it further? I think as it relates to November, all I hear Katherine saying is she'd like to perhaps massage a little of the verbiage. I'd like to hear that in the form of a motion then. How would you move? Are you prepared to make a motion to amend as to how the meeting, I guess, concluded?
Well, the two pieces, I would move that the beginning portion of the, I believe it's the second paragraph of the minute. They're up there, but, is it possible? Or it just,
November. Right, over it.
right, so, yeah, where it starts due to this, I would move that, there be some sort of recognition of those of us who are physically here, is all, and then down at the bottom, where, it mentions my motion to adjourn, that it, specify that the motion was to, adjourn until today's date when we would be in person to discuss the item.
You've heard that. Anybody wish to second that, that motion? Are you making a motion and to amend the minutes? Okay, is there a second to that motion? Okay, moved and supported.
We're just asking for a little bit of clarification.
Just two clarifications, that's it.
I know, but it says, I thought it said exactly, we're missing something. I don't know what it is.
Just to clarify that it's
You can say, it's like, it's okay. That's my perspective.
To even ask the question is almost being pronounced. Well, I do agree with what you
Thank you. I think it's fine to reflect in that fashion. Anyone else? All right, so only on the motion to amend the November minutes, as so stated in those two places, I know Rod got it active, it's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Now before us is, or rather what could be put before us now is the October meeting minutes and whether or not anyone wishes to make a motion in relation to, as I said before, I draw a line between what happened and who's there versus the ultimate legality of those decisions. And I think if there's going to be a decision on that point, I would seek legal counsel on behalf of the township, because I don't think we are in a position to make a decision like that. I can say, as someone said, well, might we face legal consequences? I can tell you for sure that if we overturn those minutes, we will have legal fees we will incur, because certain actions that we take in reliance upon the decision, that can't simply be broken. So think carefully about that issue. There is no motion before you. Does anyone wish to put a motion before the board? Why should I strike that? I'll put a motion before the board to approve the October minutes of the board as drafted. Yeah, but then we split, Ian. Then we split.
Already still there.
All right, so it's still there on the table. So, okay. So my motion is still on the table. Does anyone wish to either speak to that or to make their own motion?
I think they're an accurate representation of the discussions that were at the meeting, and I believe that that is our job as we accept meeting minutes, that they are an accurate representation of the dialogue and conversations that took place during that.
I strongly agree.
My concern would be that it's the approving of the minutes is to approve of whether decisions were in fact made or not. And the point is, the decisions were not allowed to even have been made in that meeting. So to that extent, I think there is a fairly easy fix to that, if you will, that brings things in compliance, as well as allows the people truly an opportunity to be heard on those issues, which would be under MCL 15.270, talking about reenacting possible disputed decisions that are in conformity with the act. That would be my recommendation. At the very least, I would think that the three of us who were not present at the meeting would have to abstain.
Is there a motion? Or is it my motion sufficient?
Well,
Or my motion otherwise?
My motion doesn't exactly modify yours, so I wasn't sure if I should make my own at that point, or if we have to close out yours before I would make that.
No. Anyone else wish to speak to this? Otherwise, I'll take a vote on my motion to approve.
I guess I'll go back to my first question with Dan, what happened with the board not approve?
I mean, that's obviously a legal question challenge in my mind. This motion truly reflects, is this what occurred? It has no basis on whether the subsequent will be challenged. I mean, clearly the minutes reflect how the meeting was conducted. It reflects what was occurring in that meeting that was conducted via Zoom. You're just confirming or approving. That's my opinion.
Michael, is there something in those minutes that you feel like is not an accurate representation of the conversations that we had, albeit electronically?
No, I'm just listening to everything I'm asking you. And I guess the other thing Katherine makes the point about abstaining from voting, which is what I did in 2016. The vote on minutes that wasn't happening before, so that's why I asked the question.
And that's why I just asked you the follow-up question. I was going to ask the same thing of John and Jim, because I feel like it's an accurate representation. If there are four of us with the board majority to accept the meeting minutes, that we're all there. So Jim, do you feel like there's anything in those minutes that is not an accurate representation?
No, I'm ready to vote. Ready.
John, do you feel like there's an accurate representation
Yes, I
of the
do.
conversations that we've had? Michael, do you feel like there's anything in there that isn't an
Point of
accurate?
order, Chairman.
Yeah, we do have a motion before us at this point. Rather than take votes individually like that, we'll call for a vote, and it's perfectly acceptable. In fact, it's even logical, I think, that if you weren't here and weren't part of the board, you probably don't necessarily want to vote on it. All right, so because you weren't here, you don't know. So having said that, why don't you call the roll there? Mr. Clerk will do that this time.
All right. Supervisor,
Yes, support.
clerk, abstain. Treasurer,
Yes.
Peggy Steele.
Yeah.
Josh Wong,
Yes.
Terry Miller. Katherine Henry.
All right, the motion is carried. Thank you, Brian. Item 11, Roman numeral 2, approval of the bills. You'll receive utility bills, visa bills, and the like, and we expect everyone to review. We'll see this commonly come for you. And I did say earlier we were going to break it up according to Roman numerals, so believe it or not, we'll have an individual motion just on the approval of the bills this evening. I'll go ahead and the board. You want just a second? Okay. Any discussion about the bills you received?
Kind of a clarification, items yet, but and I, even before being on the board, I've been looking through these, I don't know if other members of the public have, financial aspects. There were quite a few, and I believe I still have them almost in order, but my concern or question is, so which of these, some of these were more just reports, and some of them are going to be essentially going to approve. Is there a way that we can try to identify based on what is actually on the printout of these items, which ones are being requested to, that would be part of the motion?
Would you like to speak to that, please?
Clarity of which one? So you're asking?
Which documents are the ones that were part of the motion?
Basically, the way it's been done in the past, the board has changed this, that they're split up by the method of payment, is what you see there, how we pay them. And so some the board approves retroactively, and some the board approves like the checks before we disperse those. Those are held.
And I don't need to clarify my question. You're kind of getting into these, which I appreciate. I would want to know, but I'm actually literally, I was struggling trying to find out which one was which. So I figured I was actually saying my question in the public. But as far as when you have a PDF listed on there, I know they're all, but when the packet prints out together, and now that I'm here, I have things stapled, I think, appropriately, because I printed it before, but is anybody else trying to follow along? Where does this start? Is there a way that you can just tell me which one we're talking about? There's titles on these. I just don't know which one we're starting with.
I guess I'm a little bit confused. We're asking you to approve all 5 of those.
Yep, and we have so many spreadsheets and financial reports, none of them match the title there on the actual title printed, is all I'm saying. So now that I have it printed, I can't see which one is which.
I'm not sure what report you're looking at. One, like, for example, that's one. Is this report you're looking at?
I was looking at all of them, so I'm just trying to match up to make sure. Okay. And that particular one is the one that's 4 pages. That first PDF is all. I printed it all as one thing, so that's why it didn't show up this way.
Yes.
Okay. The next one is the 2-page. Okay.
The utility bills. These are the property tax payments. This is what would have been the October 26th meeting. This is for us. So you can see the vendor listed.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to make sure I knew exactly what piece we were voting on.
Okay, all in favor of approving the bills, Steve, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That's passed. Item 11, Roman numeral 3. This is the approval of the layout of the preliminary plat of Allward Estates West number 5, which is probably why Mr. Stidey is here. Does anyone wish to place a motion? Support. Support. Discussion about this particular plat. We'll receive information about the preliminary plat.
I do have some questions. My first question is actually, I believe this was part of, in part of the packet, there was an option for a motion. Assuming, Dan, was this part of the original packet that was just presented just to the planning commission? That wasn't really presented in the light of what was coming directly to us, but what was originally presented.
It goes to the planning commission and to us, yes.
Okay. So was this, and I probably just missed it somewhere, but was the only spelled out motion I saw was the one that said option for motion. And I wasn't sure then if that actually word for word then was fact what was voted on, or if there were changes, because there were some, looks like some suggested like carve outs or, changes or requirements, so.
Right, we're approving the same thing the planning, recommending to approve the same thing the planning commission approved. I don't know what you're looking at on that sheet.
It's whatever was part of this. So is there a possibility to pull up what that wording was then, so I can make sure that I'm looking at the right thing?
Sure. From their minutes, you want to look up? Or page 4 or page 3?
Is that the motion that was voted and approved word for word by the planning commission, or was that simply what was presented to them and they might have modified that?
That was what was presented to them. They did not modify.
They did not modify it. I guess I would have questions. So what I'm going to refer to is page 3 and 4, that's page 3, then the one that's right below that, is doing, the way they're doing that, there would be page 4. If we, in fact, look at that page 4, there were several pieces in there that looks like, if I'm reading this correct, that it said there were needs or comments. So there's, it looks like there's needs, or, I don't want to sound insulting, but I'm reading the word needs to be more like deficiencies or things that weren't quite met yet. So deficiencies for setbacks that are required by zoning ordinances, sidewalks, streetlights, garages. I'm not sure what is meant by variance in item E. And then it looks like item F is just simply indicating that the location of existing vegetation was not even provided, and that would have to be provided. So my concern is that's a lot of things going on. I mean, just look at an item of sidewalks alone. We have another piece where we're talking about a vacant piece of property, and there's a lot of discussion. It sounds like this is at least the second time the individuals brought forth a request just for a side, one continuous sidewalk that goes on the frontage of the property. That could be one, huge project alone, and yet that's just kind of amongst many other concerns or needs or deficiencies that are noted here. And I didn't see anywhere in the notes where those concerns were really being addressed. So I'm not sure if that's something that if there's answers to those, or.
This is just the preliminary approval. And so listing all the things they have to correct before they get final preliminary. So there's 3 steps, and this is step 1. So the first step is listing all the things they have to correct, do, and then they'll get their construction or final preliminary approval. Or they'll get their 3rd step when they do all those things and get their final approval. So this is the general layout before they start doing all those things. We want to achieve the layout significantly. That's what you're looking at to be approved today. Acceptable to the general layout of the lot. And or we want to add other things we want to be corrected prior to that final preliminary approval.
So I guess my question would be kind of in conjunction with that versus what's on the prior page. It's talking about, it spells out sidewalks will be provided by the individual property owner. Each house would be required to have a minimum 400 square foot attached garage or minimum 2 spaces, specific things. Are all of these things, are they then, I just feel like I didn't have enough information to see that. It sounds like those by themselves were significant changes to the overall plan. Are those just that they weren't specified, or?
Some could be each. I don't have each specific one. We'd ask the staff not to come tonight because of demonstrations. But so those are some different issues, but those will all be addressed prior to the next level, which I can either waive, accept, or require them. But the first step is you like this general layout, and you got to fix all these things before you get to the next level.
I guess my last question, I think, is the wording on item 1 of page 3 says that many lots are affected by a drainage easement that's involved. That can be kind of scary. I mean, I've known properties in other communities that, when there's a drainage easement, several lots are affected. You have one significant, that, and to me, I don't know, maybe this is something Gary with his expertise too, or you, Dan, would have an answer for. Maybe it was quite a discussion in the original planning commission meeting, but it seems that if we just assume all these things are, easy enough to just check off the box later on down the road, we might be setting up people for failure. Is that something that was more?
So what happens is, so this is step one, we like the general layout. Now they have to come to step two, which would be final preliminary. But now that they've got the general layout, then they have to go to the county, like the drain, the water resource commission, and get their, they have to go to each of those other agencies before they get that next step and start construction. So that's why they want to generally do that. Now, if you approve this, then Todd has a whole bunch of work to do to design this and get those other approvals. I'm sure that this being a later phase, that's quite far down the road already, but that's kind of how that next step will go. The developers, engineers here do it.
If you would like me to speak, I will. If not, I will.
Have you heard something, Todd, that you wish you could address or not?
I do. I think we're
I'd like to hear it.
we're getting off in the weeds, so let's not do that. If you could go back to the questions that you thought were deficiencies, I guess. This is how Manette does this every time. Sorry. Yeah, this is how Manette does her report every time. Needs or comments. So it's a comment really. So under property lines and required setbacks shown and dimension, and she put it on their setbacks. I don't know why. All of the lots have the same setbacks. They're all shown on the plan. So there's no sidewalks. She says sidewalks. We have a note on the plan that sidewalks will be provided by each lot, so it's not a deficiency. I don't know why she puts that in. Signs and exterior lighting, street lights. We have submitted a street light petition, which is required as part of the preliminary plat. I don't know if that's just a reminder for everyone, but it's not a deficiency. Garages. I think she puts that in there because every lot is required by ordinance to have at least 400 square feet of garage space. That's really, that doesn't have anything to do with plat. When someone comes in for a building permit, they ask for something 380 square feet, but it'll be denied. That's for this one. Location, covenants, variance. There are no variances required for what we've submitted. So again, I don't know why she puts that comment in there. Location of existing vegetation. Parkway Association. I don't even know what that is about. We do show existing vegetation. We show there's an existing woodline on the property, so that is on the plan. Go to the,
Is there anything that you could provide about I think you addressed all the other things on that, maybe then the drainage. I mean, you mentioned that you were somewhat in the process.
right. Well, correct. This is the very first step. And there are drainage easements on really about every lot. Drainage area on the back line, sometimes down the sideline. And those easements are required by the Water Resource Commission for the water flow ordinarily, or it's for a pipe perhaps underground. So I think, honestly, I think she puts that on there so that if someone comes and wants to build within a drainage easement, the township is on record to say the drainage easement was established in the preliminary plat or the final plat, so you can't ask for a variance to build a drainage easement. That's what I've been told. But I should put some of that language in here. It's to protect the township from a lot of potential variances that might come up. Because it's been established, there's no reason you have to build it. So, is there any other one that you had?
You were just just saying that, it's a new drainage easement that will be made as part of the whole development. And you're just essentially, your understanding of it is that's just going to then put everything on notice in the future if they're trying to do anything else with the development or modification of the property, the drainage easement, basically can't be affected in that way, and that potential thing is what might, the many lots are affected language, that's what it's talking about. Well, see, that sounds a lot less scary than the way that it reads here, so I really appreciate you explaining.
No, yeah, and like I said, we do a lot of these each year, and that's just kind of the format that has been put forward, and check the boxes, and no, as far as I'm concerned, there are no deficiencies or additional revisions that have to be made to this plan other than to go through our design, which does require the road commission of these sorts of drainage for that.
I don't know. Either way.
You will see him from time to time and others. He's always and frankly, the questions Catherine's asking, these are logical questions that I think we've all asked at different times and should continue always to ask. It's one of the reasons we wrestle sometimes when we begin a new term is, do we start with board workshops and sort of take hypotheticals and walk through them and get familiar with terms and procedures? Township does things a little different maybe than the next one, where what are the different laws? How does the plan commission interplay with the township board? And believe me, we're always learning these things, no matter how long you've been on the board. But there are sometimes things that can be, it's a front end download, when you're new. And I know, and you try to balance between saying, should we set aside a workshop versus should we tackle an issue maybe each time we meet and kind of knock things off that way too. But sometimes a workshop is something at least to think about. It can be an environment where there's just a lot of free flow of discussion. It's not about a particular decision you made at that time, but everybody be able to ask every question you can think of. Okay, I get it. I'm learning that. So food for thought. We can do more of that. But at this point, then, with those questions that have been asked, everyone ready to vote on this motion? Yes, okay. The motion before you is for the approval of the layout of the preliminary plat of Albury Estates number 5. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, item 11. Preliminary 3 is passed. Thank you for coming, Justin. All right. 11-4. All right. Anyone wish to place before the board approval of the meeting schedule for 2021 for boards and commissions?
Support.
Move. All right.
Previous years, we have scheduled 2 meetings in each of the January or February and March.
Yep.
I noticed that there's only one.
Yep. This is my impression twofold, right? So on the one hand, it is I think a reality of maybe schedules, like who's when and where and out of town, and oftentimes very helpful to have Dan and or Rod, and so if they're both unavailable or one of them, it sometimes can affect it, or in this case, not myself. But the other is I think that we didn't have a lot on the docket or waiting. However, I don't think anyone here is gonna fight, the norm of what has been. And so if people would rather place 2 meetings on the schedule and then if need be decide whether to cancel one.
I guess my concern on that would be to have it earlier, scheduled earlier in the month, just in case there is something that came up. Having it at the late January 25th, something were to come up, we would have to scramble to have one week before that.
Okay. All right. Good comment.
I was going to say, I was going to pull that from the consent. I didn't need to, but I don't have to. So that needs to be on.
I think so. I would. Yeah. It's an amendment to approve as was presented. So January 11th. proposed amendment of the administration. Okay.
And that is just, to be clear, that's for our board.
Yeah. That's right. Any discussion on that amendment to the original? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, now it's been amended. We now have 2 meetings scheduled for January, February, and March, as has been customary. As I said before, I mean, if you really saw it, if there was not a pressing need for me, having said that, then is there any further discussion before we vote on the motion as it's now been amended?
Yes, I would, I'm just kind of wondering, have a variety of different, boards as well as, general committees, other organizations. But I believe all of them either fall within the name tag of either a board or a committee. Yet we only have 2 on there in addition to our meetings. So we have the Construction Board of Appeals, Board of Review, the EDC, another, election committee, disaster assessment team, and then the utilities, service and finance committees. Is there a reason why we're identifying that we're going to have particular meetings available so we'll see ahead of time and not?
If I may, and again, you clean up on that, and wish I was going to say, for example, on EDC, you meet on an as-needed basis. I bet we met once in the last 2 years. You know, it might be an election year where there aren't any elections that are scheduled that year. But you might meet once, possibly, whereas in an election year,
the committees, we're going to try to have to organize an initial meeting with each one. We have one scheduled for several, but we want to organize an initial meeting, and each committee will set their meeting dates. So that'll be the action item on each of their agenda to set. Today, you're just approving the top one, and the other ones are just there for our similar notice.
Okay, so just to be clear, when you say committees, assuming that's utility service and finance, is that also then the EDC?
The EDC is fine, you mentioned that one needs as needed. So that's not that being scheduled. Hasn't met for a little while.
And what about the election committee?
I was on elections and we meet as needed. That's what we have got, prior to elections, but.
The disaster assessment team, is that an as-needed or is that?
Yes.
and the board of review that includes.
Yes. Yeah. The citizen board, yes. I mean, certain days based on
And then the construction board of appeals.
that just means when we have an appeal.
So I guess I would ask just for clarification for so I guess I would ask for clarification that we essentially even just separate that out so that, I mean, if I have a question, I'm going to assume that other people might have a question in the community. So even if we had it spelled out that the CBA, the EDC, the election committee, and the will be meeting as needed, and board review will meet as required by statute, usually the third Tuesday of March, and then the utility service and finance will be scheduling their meetings, just to, so it's clear what the expectation is if people are wanting finance information online to make it available. That would be, I guess I'm going to move to amend, just to include those brief explanations about it.
I think add to that the fact that that same explanation it might say be sure to check your website or whatever.
And you can sign up for alerts, and they will email it right to you, or anyone that you want to.
Another support.
Support discussion on the amendments.
This would be, well, I have a different kind of discussion, I have to do it the date, so
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Very good. So the motion, the original motion has been further amended now. And it's still before the board. Any other discussion or further amendment? Otherwise, we'll take a vote.
My only question or, dare I say friendly amendment would be, I think we need to clarify that the boards and committees that would be deemed as having to abide by the OMA, the Open Meetings Act, that we require or explain that those will be open to the public, that so going forward, we don't end up in any situations where we have any potential issues. Whether it might seem silly, you know, it's one little meeting of a whatever planning commission like that. It's really important thing in those committees as well as it's not just, you know, the board or all the measures.
Right, and I know when they're published, that mention is made of the public, but I think your encouragement is to maybe in the motion that you've already had passed of amendment is make it even clearer. These are meetings that are open meetings, that they should follow the township website, because some of these committees, the following committees only meet on an ad hoc basis or what have you. And maybe it's just further clarification and say, make it as clear to the public as possible. They have an opportunity to know and participate.
Well, I guess specifically that people would be able to come in person to participate, that they would be excluded because it's going to be done on YouTube or a Zoom or this or whatever.
Sure. Well, you can make that just clear. I know the notices themselves, though, also require that notification. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the motion as now twice amended, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Item number 12, appointment now to some of these great committees, boards, and commissions we were just discussing. I'm going to place a motion before the board to approve what I've recommended in the way of appointments. Support. All right, moved and supported, and now it's on the table. I want to say preliminarily that I tried to make recommendations that would give people a variety of experiences. In a couple of cases, I knew prior board members who been on a committee maybe wanted something new, different than what they've done before. So I made recommendations that way. I tried to think of people like Gary and his expertise where I placed him, but you know what? These are all open to board discussion and debate, and my feelings aren't hurt.
Yes, my question is going to be list. I guess now there's three: Jim's list, Ryan's list, and Dana's list.
I do not.
Was that?
I don't think it ever got. It was submitted prior to the previous meeting. It never got sent back together.
So that apparently something you wanted to talk about tonight.
Correct.
The one that's been sent to everyone as part of the agenda is the one that moved place before you, and that's the one right there. And I think, I don't know if there's that one. And then there's the ability to discuss that one and
I think this third one is the original yellow, and then the green is the.
yeah, I don't know if that's what Michael meant, because I well, the unmeeting, we're not looking at that one, we're looking at this one. And take it away, if anybody wishes to address, say why I can't imagine doing this particular thing, this is not my area, or something different. Thoughts?
As you said, I looked at the list that Ryan had put together, and I was, it really seemed to utilize. I know in the original list did not have Barry on planning commission. I think Barry is Mr. Dudley's expertise in building development. He is the absolute best case scenario for that. And that's not. That sounds good.
It's my list.
That's the high.
I asked Andrew to make that change, yes.
Katherine, it's, if you scroll up, it's highlighted in green, but Gary under.
instead of Ryan.
There it is. Yep.
So
Those
that's
are,
planning commission is here, so.
yeah, I asked Deanna to flip those, probably even before last week's meeting.
The yellow, original yellow was what we saw before, that's why when we made some changes after
Yeah.
the meeting,
Yeah,
that was postponed. I highlighted those so people could tell which
sure,
changes
sure.
you made,
I appreciate it.
in case they looked at the list and didn't see there were changes.
Yeah.
And I also have a list that Ryan's proposed.
And he affirms that, right, those two.
I submitted it just before the last
meeting.
meeting, but never.
Okay, got it, got it. All right, well, it's on the floor, so,
If we're gonna talk about Ryan's list, can we see Ryan's list, or can we go, board by board and talk about it?
I have another worksheet here if you actually want to show you.
It's just hard to talk about Ryan's list when I haven't seen Ryan's list. I didn't know Ryan's list was there.
I just assumed that everybody had it. We emailed it to somebody. I didn't see.
do you want, do you want him to pass on to all of us everything you send them? Go, so the process.
Go ahead, bring it up the list. No, that's not fair.
You have part of those.
I have hard copies.
Okay.
No changes to the previous one.
All right.
My list is trying to keep the continuity as well. I know Michael had previous experience on the zoning board of appeals. So I was going to keep him in that spot. And I know future things that are going to be coming out in front of the zoning board of appeals that I may have. Keep Michael with you. And I also wanted to discuss as far as like the construction board of appeals. Have they ever had a board member present?
It hasn't been customary, and,
Sorry, this, the county has a list here. So now you can, a blue to show the changes. Okay? Ryan's proposed changes, so then you can kind of just decide on each one as we scroll down. Okay, you can see, so the blue is the one that's, go ahead, these are all the same. You can see the blue then with selection is the proposed change. There you go, here's the grays. Complete change, you can just see the difference between.
Some of them just got mixed up, which one was still in the.
Yeah.
Brian, did you discuss these with Jim at all?
No, but the previous list was one of your discussed with anybody else on the board.
that's not true, but it may not have been discussed as much with you as you might.
I wasn't discussed, I was just asking.
That's fine, that's fine. You know what, I could have communicated more with more people. It was not intentional, but your point, if you're saying, you know, we could have hashed this out, yeah, I think we each could have hashed it out. Your point, but here it is, let's talk about it.
Yeah, and that was a surprise to me is 2016 when I was contacted. Give me a list of,
By me.
would you be interested, which I thought was
Yeah, I mean, sure.
I will rank them as what you'd like to get most. So it's kind of shocker this year when that didn't happen. And also it was brought up in the final where it was discussed that boards would remain the same for 6 months to address. But then once they got a completely different list, it was kind of, what's going on?
But I reserve the word shocked for something actually shocking. So, anyway, you don't like where I put you, and you'd like things different. So make your case, I guess, to us. I see just a handful of changes. I don't know if it's highlighted there, but I see, oh yeah, it is, okay. All right.
I was excited about the change from utilities to services because I've been on utilities for the last 4 years. I think there's something to be said for continuity, but I also think that there's something to be said for stretching your wings a little bit and variety. I think in a lot of ways, changing committees are, as new boards are seated, are good for the thinking, for example, the sidewalk waiver request, came before utilities previously when I was on that, and now we have a new board seated, and they're coming back for it, hoping for a different result. And I think that specific example isn't an isolated one of things that have come before the utilities committee previously, and people are maybe hoping the new board would maybe have some new voices and consider it differently. So to that end, I was looking forward to a change to services. But that said, I'm happy to be a team player, and I'm happy to serve in either of those capacities. I really love serving with the Genesee Historical Society, so I'm happy that didn't change colors and names up there, which is silly, but I have really grown fond of that group. But that would just be my only food for thought, is I think that every argument you can be made for consistency, like keeping John and I on utilities, there is a similar argument for different voices being heard on the same topic.
I think I should ask this question, that is, the four of you obviously knew about this list, and I think I agree with that. If you're not persuadable, then we're wasting time. That is, if you're going to vote, and tell us so we can, move on to the next item.
I think for us to get this at the last minute, and for Jim to be selected, and not to work with him.
This was here at the last meeting.
Just thrown at it.
Here at the last
I didn't
meeting.
have it.
It was sent digitally prior to the meeting.
We should not talk to him about this. We're going to turn everything upside down.
But none of this was talked to any of us about either. So I'm
He
not,
made it available. Is an open door
I'm just saying
policy.
it's a two-way street.
So does Dan.
I think that the difference is that Jim's list was in the packet for our meeting a week ago, and so we all had it at least a week, at least the Friday. I have not known that this list existed. Saddens me, because I feel like if it was out there and it hadn't gotten distributed, then it wouldn't have been difficult in the interest of fair play to send a PDF of it to Jim, John, and I, and say, hey, I know you were in the boardroom and this is sitting on this wall, and so I want to make sure I'm surprised at the tactics of it. I don't care, frankly, what committee I land on. I care way more about whatever committee I land on needs than I care what the topic is. But it just saddens and disappoints me that out of the gate, that is going to be our strategy for communicating with each other.
It is very sad, because I also was not aware that there were things that were changed from the original recommendations that Jim made to a whole new. I didn't reread out literally every single word of a 93-page packet, because that's insane. So had I been told, hey, here's a list that I'm changing things that prior to that, I mean, I think it's all, and I don't, to me, I don't know what happened. I don't, but what I'm hearing is, and I don't think there's a dispute to it, that you sent this, I saw this list, it was printed, it was here, but you guys weren't here. But then my understanding is you had emailed it to Dan so it could be distributed prior to that. So I don't want to.
Why wasn't it included then in the packet for this meeting? Like this one, the one with the green highlights on it.
I was in at the last meeting and did not get.
Listen, I think that we're
Custody
here.
issue?
I think we're here. It's here in front of us. Let's hash it out. I've seen the changes you're recommending. Becky, you've spoken your view of where you're placed. I know you like the Historical Society. You'd have preferred to switch over to services. I know in John's case, I denied him like 4 years ago when he wanted to be in finance, and that was one of the reasons I thought as a longstanding board member, I thought he's waited. But again, it's subject to your vote. I don't know why I wouldn't be the alternate on the two utilities and services. It's just sort of been that the supervisor would serve in an alternate role on those. I'm happy to do so.
Gladly give you that.
Yeah.
For utility. I mean, Katherine Henry was not on either one of these three, so I do put her as an alternate.
She's not on what? now? Oh, so you
Not on-
have her on,
She's
have
not
her
on all-
on any of the committees?
I'm okay being an alternate, but I'd like to at least stay alternate.
Is there a reason you're not on one of the three committees under this proposal?
I'm just kind of taking in the whole list here, and hearing, just bits and pieces of different people's backgrounds as I've had, limited knowledge. I probably know the same amount about each of you at this point. I don't really know anybody. But to me, I'd be happy with, I'm still, because it's not a fault of you guys over there, but I'm not sure I necessarily caught all the green changes that you made, but based on the one I had of the yellow, the one that's printed in yellow in front of us, I'm fine with that. And like I said, I just can't see everything else that's on there, but I didn't see huge changes otherwise. I don't know if this would make any difference. Perhaps, you kind of mentioned just basically an all or nothing thing, but there was, some hashing out of all kinds of details. I'm seeing, for example, planning commission, you guys agree. If we could at least start going down there, I think there's a ton where everybody's on the same page. If we could even just grab those, I would just.
They should have been on the same page before. Ryan should have met with Jim, have the treasurer and the.
I think you made that point several times.
Compromise this out before we got here.
It's not on
I
Ryan.
should not get this at the last minute.
No, and that's not on Ryan either.
And that's not transparency.
That's not on Ryan.
We do not have full.
Well, lesson
So
learned.
we
I
can
think
just
going
right now go
forward,
ahead and say there. You want it? Because that's what you're doing.
No, you're
Not
making this an
talk
us
to Jim
versus
ahead of
them.
time if someone's insulting, I can't believe
It's insulting that you think the rules apply to certain people and not others. So literally every single point of concern that you guys have raised about how this information was distributed ahead of time, or the conversations that were not had ahead of time, literally could be some of the original list. The list was put out there without any conversation with any of us about it. And maybe there was conversation with you, but there wasn't with any of us.
okay.
So we can go down the negative road. I was trying to go
Jim
forward
had
together.
COVID last week.
I was trying to go forward together, and it looks like we have a lot of points of agreement. So if you guys just want to say, fine, we'll just go with yellow, Ryan, that's fine, let's do it. I was trying to figure out if we could just figure out where we have points of disagreement, and it looks like we have a lot of agreement though. So could we not? I mean, if you just want to vote on the whole list, fine, let's just vote on the whole list, but
I don't think anybody, failed to notice that on that first page, Catherine, that there was really very little to discuss. The only change really there was Michael Boshin for Ryan. Ryan apparently doesn't want to do it, Michael does, so it's hard to argue with that. They more or less made a trade with each other, would everyone agree with that? That doesn't affect anybody but the two of them.
The only other discussion on that would be position of possibility.
Right, on the CBA. And I think the question that you asked a moment ago is, hey, we haven't had a board representative necessarily in the past. Dan, I mean, we're putting a lot on Gary, put Gary here, put Gary there. He's like,
Yeah, I'm just curious how you become the commissioner of Noxious Week. That's just.
I think you should ride along with Rich.
I'm just trying to figure out what that's all about, that's all. I'm like, and you get the name commissioner.
And you get to wear a special hat.
Do you?
Dan,
Are you okay with us getting this right now? Is this okay with you?
I'm here to serve.
let's complete that first page. Dan, the question on the floor is whether or not Gary being added, to that and being a board representative. I mean, there's nothing to forbid that, even though we necessarily require the board.
Make it a 3-year term, but then 3-year term, we have to change. So that's, instead of board representative, it's 3 years.
Yeah, okay, so identify there 12/31,
2023.
2023.
That's why I put the term.
And John, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I was just trying to get to that first page and then visit the more.
I feel bad that they did not work with a supervisor and they came in with this list. And you are a man of compromise and you would have worked this out and it would have gone smooth.
I
If
appreciate
you
it,
agreed with it,
John.
you would have said nothing.
I appreciate you saying that. I will be the first to admit, and it was not by design, I didn't communicate as much or as well as I did 4 years ago. And I could have communicated better with that. Now, having said that, that makes the point that my list was out there, and that would have been an opportune time to say, hey, before that that meeting that turned into an unmeeting, can we talk about this? But, so I think you could say there's failures on
You thought for 6 weeks early. There was plenty of time to talk with you.
yeah, I said
I
I do.
disagree with 6 weeks,
That's okay.
unless you guys got it.
No, not the case, not the case.
It was early.
I just wish, Brian, as, I don't know exactly what the process is behind the scenes, is putting packets together and putting it out. But Ryan, I wish that at the start of our agenda, it says notice is hereby given, that we're gonna have this special meeting on November 30, and it's signed by Ryan, his clerk. I wish that when this packet came out for tonight's meeting, that if this list existed, it had been included in the packet.
May I, Ryan? May I just real quickly? I'm going to Ryan's defense a little bit here, Becky.
Okay, I don't know.
That, Ryan, you're going to say that you felt like in providing to Dan that you had done the proper method and provided to us, but not having seen it or confirmed that, I guess you would say, well, you know what, next time I'm going to make sure, confirm, or be clear communication to him, but it wasn't presumably by design that you intended to.
I wasn't too sure. He submitted to me before the last meeting.
Yeah, okay.
We had some changes. The issue is, we had a discussion on Wednesday, and I was under the impression he was going to have a discussion with you.
Okay.
I spoke with the clerk, he said you were going to speak to you and you were going to work something out. So that's why I didn't share it, I thought it was going to be another
Sure. So
alternative. So
that
And
makes
Ryan, I
sense.
hope that I didn't come across as disrespectful, but what the end of my thought was going to just be is that moving forward, if there's something like that, that there is a list circulating, I would appreciate that we, as somebody who is rarely in the county offices for meetings, I would just appreciate if we double check that all necessary documentation gets into the packet in advance. Because when Michael said the Ryan list and the Jim list, I had no idea that there was another list, besides one that was provided.
And I think there's an important point to be, that the whole board needs to be given whatever information is out there, but also the public. And, so, obviously if a packet is put together and those of us on the board are getting it, that's in theory, it should be the same packet that's online with the whole, the public see. And so, with that, I mean, I think we can all agree that we would want
That was the
everybody
point,
to
yeah,
be
that I
able
was
to.
trying to make, that it's not so much for me, it's for everyone to use.
So, Mr. Chairman, the question I have is,
Yes.
are there people that aren't happy with the community they got? The community they want to move to? Because I haven't heard anybody say, you're talking about lists.
I
If
wish
there's
that,
somebody if there's a committee you want to be on, put your name on.
I wish that I was on services instead of utilities, but I'm happy to serve in either capacity. It's surprising to me that Katherine is on none of those three, because I think you bring a lot of expertise and a different perspective, and I think historically all board members have been on at least one of utility services or finance. And so it's surprising to me that you're not on one of those. I want you to have the full board experience over the next 4 years, and I think that there is a lot of value to serving on one of those regularly meeting, heavier agenda item kind of committees. I'm on Historical Society and WCET and elections. I'm happy to serve in all three of those capacities, but that in addition to utilities or services, feels like a lot more than what I've done before. I'm definitely up to the challenge, but WCET is not something I have served on previously. And so if someone else, wanted another way to have their voice heard, I would happily share that one. I don't know what the WCET list was but I was surprised that I was on WCET and Genesis Historical. Please don't think Genesis Historical.
No, I didn't appoint you to those, you're saying, like, all right. So there's two things she said, we're going to dig into the meeting, we're on page 2 now, that's where it seems to break down. Becky would prefer not to be in WCT, is there anyone who would really like to be on?
I have one point.
Yeah, sure.
The question we're having here is, there's a motion on the floor at this point. We want to make sure, for our part, that you all are discussing the list that's on the floor.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
But she's talking about not wanting to be on one, but that's not one that's.
Very good.
So I just wanted to clarify,
Yeah.
if you're doing something different.
I would make a motion to take from the table the list that is currently on screen, especially
The packet.
for clarification purposes. And then if it needs to be separated, I can, otherwise, it would be a joint motion then to start addressing the list that we've been referring to as Ryan's list. I don't know how else to identify that.
Technically, it's not on the table. This is on the table. That list was passed out, but it's not a formal motion. So technically, we're dealing with this list right here.
Well, this list is all of them together.
That's
So
what
for
we're gonna do right now.
clarification, the motion though, when she's talking about being on the list or not, or whatever, our conversation has been geared around, we're actually discussing Ryan's list. So for a point of discussion, to make it clear.
Sorry, that was my mistake.
No, it's
But I mixed up my two packets. We're talking about Ryan's list.
So I would support Catherine's motion to remove this current list from the table and replace it with, is that correct? You want to replace it with?
at least for, I think it's in helpful way the conversation's been going, that would be my motion. Yes.
So you want to vote to remove Jim's list?
It would be, it's considered a motion to take from the table the list that was presently presented by
Supervisor's
motion.
list,
And then,
and replace it with a treasurer's list.
and to consider it with the.
So remove the supervisor's list, and replace it with a treasurer's list,
With the clerks,
or clerk's list.
for purposes of consideration.
Okay, either way, we're going to have a discussion about how we finalize things. Is there any further discussion on that particular motion? If there's none, I'm going to ask Ryan if you would call.
Did you read the motion first, please?
So the motion is to remove the supervisor's list and replace it with the clerk's list
From the table.
from the table.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I say no.
Clerk is yes. Treasurer,
Yes.
John Schwab,
No.
Gary Belly,
No.
Becky Steele,
No.
four no's.
Okay, so that motion fails. The motion is still before you then with the so-called supervisor's list. We're back to, as I say, working through, now looking at that list. I believe on the first page, we have agreement in that we've added one person. Well, I know we haven't got a motion yet, but as part of the discussion that could come about in the way of a motion, suggestion is made that we add Gary to CBA. And further that Ryan come off from CBA and Michael be placed on CBA. That's what we have so far. When we turn to the second page then, obviously we know there are differences between what I have proposed and what others are thinking. Comments about that, I know comments that are on the floor include the following. Katherine is not on any one of these three committees, and most likely Katherine, but she does like to ask questions, and these committees are great places to learn a bunch so that we're not necessarily learning. But it's fine to do it that way too, but I think sometimes you get into the nitty gritty, so it's very interesting. It's very eye-opening and helpful. So that's an issue that's before us. Becky has said that she'd prefer to be on services and remain there, and suggested that maybe she be removed and moved elsewhere. So I'm not going to make the arguments for those who wish to change it, but we can see what those changes are. I only say for myself, I would like to be the alternate on utilities and service. I have been the last 4 years. I bet it comes up once a year. It just kind of gives me a pulse as supervisor on some of these, and it's a good opportunity to join with some of these committees.
Just to address something there, I'm going to always ask questions because sometimes I really don't know the answer, but sometimes I think it's important that we really bring some information to the forefront. I think a lot of times, if I've even heard somebody else for example, if I'm talking about an agenda item with my husband before a meeting, and he brings up a question, if I think, gosh, that sounds like a question I think a lot of people would probably have, I'm gonna make it a point to ask the question, so that everybody else can get that answered. That's just the way I've always done it. I'm a trained mediator as well, and so I like to follow the sword, if you will, to that degree where it's, I'll be the one that wants to ask all the questions, so.
You and I have the same pension, Katherine, so you asked away, I don't mean to diminish your. Anyone, anything substantive about, or this, that's before you, yes?
Zoning Board of Appeals, you said you're gonna put my name up, you're gonna take off Brian. I don't see a Brian.
No, Gary, you're on planning commission, I guess that's before you, the one that was published with this agenda. So it's Ryan right now that's on the ZBA.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yep. And the suggestion has been made to have Michael remain on the ZBA, and they seem amenable to it. So, yep. And then not mentioned there, but has been brought up tonight, is the idea that you might be added to the Construction Board of Appeals. How do you feel about that, Gary? You good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't come up real often, as Dan was saying, it's only as often as there's.
I please don't really think that off.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right, the 12/31 of 2023. Is that right? Okay. So, thank you. Page 2 then, I mean, my motion's before you, so I don't really need to say more. But those of you who don't like that, wish to speak, or
The one that I would like to fight for would be me moving to switching spots with Josh Wong on the committee. I believe having the supervisor, clerk, and treasurer is extremely important.
okay. John, or anyone else? Anyone else impacted by that? Wish to speak?
I served on the finance committee before, and about 6 years, and I feel like I got a strong background. I feel like a strong finance background, and I think I can add a lot. But I can understand it. I think that's legitimate. And I would be your call.
I think that is where it comes down to the muscle in terms of votes. John, I want you on there. Just like to Ryan did a great job as well. So I just felt like I didn't realize you served on that. I just thought, I told you no 4 years ago, and okay, we waited. And actually, Rich, that's Dale's fault. Well, we may have to piecemeal this a little bit if we're not horse trading. So, I mean, I can count those as well as the rest of you. Anyone else wish to speak on that particular point, as to whether or not you agree with this?
I agree with Ryan.
Okay.
I think that.
And I agree with that too, because instinctively on some of the financial items, I reached out to the people that I know that signed the checks, albeit new for Ryan and you're in a different role as treasurer, but to me, it would make sense to have them be along with you and are you on the committee right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't necessarily have that in mind about who's on which committee, but I just think, as I think a lot of the public would think of too, if there's a question, a particular question that comes up on, say a financial issue, the people that are the ones signing the checks really need to be the most in the know. So is that the two of you then? Am I right in that? Okay. So I would agree that, I see no reason why the supervisor wouldn't be on there. If it had more people, I don't think it would be an issue of having you on there, but just having the two of them that sign the checks, I think would be important to have that information and be.
I was going to say, since you've been on before, you switch, but then I remember the issue when I originally looked at it was at 8:15 in the morning, that would be
That concept that could be moved. But I don't think John's looking to bump. Well, and I will say this, as having been on different committees, I mean, Franklin Finance is up to the pinnacle or something. It's really not, I think when I was on utilities, I spent a whole lot more money on there putting a $5 million sewer line in the ground, but be that as it may. Anyone else wish to opine about that particular point, since that seems to be a very significant change? We've heard from virtually everybody. I guess, Gary, you have an opinion, you don't have to express it now, you can wait to vote. Just keep it up. Oh, all right. Okay. Other comments? Other comments? I had a feeling, I mean, I don't want to necessarily keep 5 different amendments. I'm trying to maybe cover any remaining ones and then see if we string it together in 1 or 2.
Are you talking, which items are you talking about? Talk about order.
Page 2, basically page 2.
Anything on page 2?
Yep.
Is it possible to scroll up? I'm not sure if I got any.
Sure, we can start right there at the top.
So the only difference, between the two lists that I saw, the two proposals anyway, between the two of you is, as far as I'm seeing, before we get down to the actual board committees, is just, John on the elections committee versus, I think you originally had Gary and then John, and then, Ryan, you can put me on there. Right, but I thought, I was just thinking, you and I did have.
We texted each other, yeah. We
Was
texted
that
about that.
about the election committee?
It was about the election committee. Are you strongly interested in that, or is that what you're trying to say?
I guess, yeah, I guess I'd be interested in serving on that one. That's why I was surprised to see that there was a change, but it wasn't to me, because I think we understood what you're.
Very good. So you're surprised that you want to be, that's okay. All right, thoughts about that, anybody?
I think we have to be careful that our conversation is to ask John from Election Commission and to ask John from Finance, and John, we value your voice. I think that if we're going to move forward with those changes, then we need to talk about where we can utilize John, the same way that I advocated for making sure that Katherine was on committees when I was accidentally looking at her.
Could we vote on finance?
If you'd like to piecemeal it, there'd have to be a motion on the floor to say, I want to move and then on that point, take the vote on that.
Well, to vote on it as a whole will reduce my option.
Okay, all right. You'd like to see where that falls. And then,
Yes.
Okay. So there's a motion by John on the, well, you're not making a motion. If someone wishes to make the motion, wants to change the present status of things.
I wish to put the motion forward to change me on the finance committee and move John Swan to the
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. And I think this is one, we talked about sufficiently, I think it's one to just go by roll call. Okay. Again, a new motion.
clerk is a yes. Treasurer?
Yes.
John Swan?
No.
Gary Belvin? Yes. Becky Steele?
No.
Katherine Henry?
Yes.
Okay, the ayes have it 4-3. So that change is made to the finance committee. Ryan will be serving there, and then John as an alternate. I don't think anybody would object. John, he said I don't want to be. He doesn't think that's fine. The other two committees, are there any motions with respect to those? You've got a motion on the floor already as the main facilities and services.
Jim, does that leave me with services and election? Is there a possibility of utilities here?
Well, certainly make your case that you know what you would like to.
I would, if I heard you correctly, I would be fine with, I'm sorry, I'm still trying to sort my way through all the lists. What's going on, but, if I heard you correctly, and you want to be on utilities, and currently listed on there, I'm fine with you taking my place on utilities. I would have more of an interest in being on the election
Henry on the elections committee with Ryan Kidd and myself. To have utilities be Michael Bosch as listed, John Schwalm in Katherine Henry's place, and Gary Belding as listed. Services to be as listed on the screen, and finance we just voted on.
Before, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so
Catherine's on this? I don't know if Catherine would swap with John. Well, Catherine's on my sister.
Committees, there is the off, and then I guess just we haven't talked about it. Everything else until then, I think, like we're all the same.
Election commission meets probably not at all next year, but maybe once or twice.
And if it matters, our election commission meetings have been under 10 minutes. Essentially, we have a list of poll workers in advance, and we ask any questions that we have about poll workers, and that's those lists. Sometimes we purchase equipment for the elections, but it is not.
Just to make sure I understood what everything you said before that, though, you were talking about the election committee and utilities. If we were to leave off service, right, it would be just those two.
I'm fine with my motion being elections to include Catherine, utilities to include John, leaving services out of my motion.
Are you including phase one? That was decided?
She didn't mention it with you.
Yeah, page one has decided, including Ryan and Michael Switch for CPA.
Okay, and there was also adding Gary to the construction board. So, is there a second for that motion?
Second.
The second, okay. Comments about the motion that's before you? My comment would be that that's not really a switch apples for apples with Catherine. Utilities meets regularly, and does some of the heavy lifting. Elections meets almost not at all, and very short. I think that at least if we're going to approve this motion, we should have either potentially reappoint Catherine to utilities or place her on services. But that's just the count. That doesn't necessarily affect this motion. She's right there.
No, I think it's, sorry, we got a lot of things that are all going on. I mentally was settled with whatever she ended up having her final motion on, so I guess to me, I prefer just to stay with her final motion on. Or as it relates to me.
All right. Moved and seconded. There's no further discussion.
another read her motion back before we vote on it.
I'll start on the first page. My motion is to include Gary Belding on the planning commission. It's a green change on page one. To swap Ryan Kidd for Michael Bosch on the CPA. To appoint Gary Belding to the construction board of appeals. To have the elections committee be Ryan Kidd chairman, Katherine Henry, and Becky Steele trustee. And to have the utilities committee be Michael Bosch, John Schwalm, Gary Belding, and Jim Waringa as the
Pleasure.
Yes.
Clerk is a yes. Carter?
Yes.
Joshua?
Yes.
Gary Belding?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Okay. Making some progress here. I'd like to make a motion. I know that, yeah, I'm looking to amend my own motion here. I'd like to move to eliminate Michael Bosch from utilities and put Catherine on utilities. We place Michael now on CBA, he's on finance. Those are regular meters. If you give him a third one, that's a lot.
Did you say replace?
To put you on utilities and to put Michael, and take Michael off.
Is that not what we just voted on?
No, you were removed in place of John.
And
Yeah,
so
you
now,
didn't want to separate it.
he wants to keep you on, so now we still put you in Michael's bed.
Got it.
It's been moved. Is there support?
Support.
Okay,
Sorry to think that far ahead in my.
that's all right. Discussion.
I'm gonna be respectful if I said no, that I was okay with. I really liked the people that were discussed being put on there, and I was okay not being on that. It's almost like I'm being forced to just go wherever because, like I'm not gonna do enough, but I guarantee you I will be doing plenty. So I think that's, at this point, is kind of approaching the point of disrespect to me.
Sure. No, I don't mean disrespect. I'm looking at Michael, and for his sake, thinking he's got 3 plus the board. He's got 4 regular meetings, 5 2 board meetings.
You homeschool?
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't
we're
think-
good.
You know what? And I can say I have 8 kids, right? So we can all say, but listen.
No, I'm a homeschool teacher, that was my point, I love it, I love it.
Okay, and utilities meets after board meetings in the evening, so not every board with that. That's why, partly why I was thinking that one instead of the other one. Does it not, Dan? You meet in the evenings for utilities? Monday evenings? I know it can vary, but that's generally what it's done.
We have for the last 2 boards that have.
Yes, the first meeting of the board will be to set the schedule, so if they want to continue that way, which they have, unless they hear, yeah, but whatever works out for the members.
I guess my understanding is, unless I misunderstood you, Mr. Bosch, that you were okay staying on, and I was okay not being on, so I think this is kind of a colossal waste of time to rehash that particular issue.
I don't think he said that. I think he said.
I'm okay, whatever.
We've never had it where we've never had a board member not serve on the committee, ever. Not saying that it's a rule that you have to, we just not have somebody that.
I think there's value, Catherine, to having your voice on utility services or finance. And so I feel like this swap with Michael on utilities, or we need to discuss the services committee, being as listed, myself, Jen, Schwalm, and Ryan. I think that we should look for an opening for you on one of those 2. Because I think that it is important for all board members to serve on at least one of those 3, but I'm also not going to force you into your mind.
I just hear a lot of people that have a strong, like, for example, I didn't know that you would want to be, well, we mentioned, like,
Just historical.
so, well, yeah, but I mean, you had mentioned, also, serving on the service, if I remember that correctly, that you would want to, and, some other comments that have been made. So to me, I think as each person expressed interest on being or not being on certain things, I kind of took that in at the time, and that seemed to make sense, where things are sitting. So, whether I end up being on a particular set of 3 committees or not, to me, I think I understand there's maybe a way things have always been done. I really couldn't care less. I mean, I don't mean disrespect in the way that, I'm going to purposely not do it that way, but not having known that before I looked at any list at all, it doesn't change my mind in the sense that I think it needs to be the right people on there. So, to me, I don't have, I guess the way that I look at it, I'm going to be the one, because we'll eventually have all of these topics make it in front of us. I'm not going to be ignoring any of the topics. I may very well end up being at quite a few, and to be honest, I think what I would like to do is to be, to go to some of these meetings myself and be able to open my schedule up, especially as somebody is new on the board, to, 1 week or 1 month or whatever, I'm going to focus on utilities because there's some stuff coming up I really want to hear about, but then that's pushing the rest of my schedule because this isn't like a full-time job. I need to be able to have those other, times open, whereas the next month or next week, gosh, there's something on the services committee that I think I really need to learn about or hear about. I'm not the one that's going to be debating the issues or whatever, but I want to be able to learn that way. And so the more I heard, people have, want to be on certain things or not, I think it works just fine for me to not be on there. I would like to be the alternate on services. of any of them. I think that could be a good place where I could serve, in that capacity, but I think, we could essentially, if somebody decided they no longer wanted to serve, if Michael Bosch's schedule determined later on, either next year or 2 years or whatever, that it wasn't going to work, that would be, it's not like I can never serve, but I would really value being able to, learn a little bit, of each of these and participate in that way. So
I think that the piece that we run into with that previously, like attending when you're not on the committee, is that if you attend, you're welcome to attend one that you're not on and listen, but you can't participate in the conversation because then there's a quorum of board members.
that's not actually how the law works, but I'm not gonna, I understand that's what's been said.
I would just want us to be mindful of, I want us to be mindful of and respectful of you. And so if you wanted your voice heard in one of those situations, I would want to make sure that this group is giving you the opportunity to have your voice formally heard in the session. I'm not trying to push you. I don't want us to be a year from now and have you have regrets because there are voices that have lots of opportunities to be formally heard, and those aren't yours in our group.
Well, and again, to me, I think because we're not cemented, it's not like for 4 years I could never serve on any of these things. I really would like the opportunity to really sample, if you will, learn from each of the boards and committees and commissions, every single thing on all these pieces of paper, so that I can figure out where my strengths and weaknesses would be. And I don't feel compelled or drawn necessarily towards any of the other ones. For whatever reason, the election committee was where it was at for me. But aside from that, I would feel no shame in coming forward in a year or whatever, 2 years and saying, hey, I'd be really interested in serving on 1, 2, or 3, whatever. Is anybody interested in, not serving on that committee? And then trying to have that discussion.
Okay. Well, none of us was experts in sewers or something. We learned. And me, as part of being a team player, it's the most conducive committee to schedule. It's part of learning the role. And the election committee literally is probably a half an hour of time next year. I'm not sure the year following. But anyway, does anyone else wish to speak to my motion to move and second? In my original motion, if here none, we'll take a voice vote on whether or not to swap Katherine on the utilities in place of Michael.
I thought I'm sorry, clarification. I thought he's currently on utilities. Your motion would be to take him off and put me on.
He's not technically on, he's on in my proposal.
But that's her motion included him on that, so they already voted on that.
Sure, and that amended my original motion, which hasn't yet been voted on. He's not officially in anything. Okay? Not officially in anything. We're simply trying to amend further what is before the board currently, which would be to swap you and Michael. And would you take a voice vote, please, Ryan?
So just for clarification, I wasn't on Jim's original list, but Becky added me in a motion to utilities, and now Jim has made another motion to take me off utilities.
You were on our.
That's what I was confused about.
You were.
Actually pushed down there.
So you want to, you've already crossed yourself.
So is it,
All right.
is a yes vote?
So a yes vote would be to make the swap.
A yes vote is putting you on and taking Michael.
A yes vote.
A yes vote means that Katherine Henry, John Schwalm, and Gary Go.
So I was just looking for further clarification from Catherine.
We know she doesn't. So, all right. So Ryan, you want to take that?
Supervisor.
Yes.
Clerk is a yes. Treasurer. Swamp.
No.
Okay, Ron. You?
No.
Okay, the yes is kind of 4-3. Are there any other changes that anyone wishes to make And the proposal, yes.
I did have a question about disaster assessment team. Would it make sense to add more board members to that? How often does that one?
In my opinion, it makes no sense whatsoever.
I just wondered if there was reason to do 4 board members in the case of an emergency.
The purpose of the disaster assessment team is to determine the value of the disaster, to approximate the value and cost of the disaster, and to report that value. So that's why frequently have the assessor, as a person on. So, answer my question, no, I don't think it makes any sense. Not a meeting like this, go out there, property, report what the damage is. Where does make improvement out there?
I also have a question on the utilities. I understand utilities are not yet set, but what is the currently on the
Services meets the Thursday prior to the second Monday for utilities meets on the second Monday after the board meeting. That is the current schedule.
make sure I heard you correctly. You're saying as it currently says, utilities meets right after,
Right after the board meeting on the second Monday.
and service meets on the
Thursday before the second Monday, which is different than other things. It's Thursday before the second Monday at 4 p.m. We're going to ask them to try to move that earlier so we get the agenda out earlier. That's the hold up of the agenda. That's one request we're going to see if we can move it Tuesday. So we can get the board agenda out.
And for my clarification, with the 12 times that we have now voted on changing the utilities committee, what currently sits as the motion before us is to have me, John, Gary serving on utilities with Jim as the alternate. Is that correct?
Okay. Are there any other changes anyone wishes to make?
I would prefer to be an alternate on the service committee. I don't even know at this point who's doing what. I know on one of the lists I was an alternate on that, and I valued that. I believe Ryan is on both. So, the one that before us, that
I won't oppose it. If you'd like to be the alternate on the services, I would step aside. I'm happy to be in that role, but
and I also, I guess, I'm interested the whatever this, I don't even know, it's just a word, legal, intergovernment, miscellaneous people. On one of the lists, you and I are both listed on one list, it's just you. What does that do?
there's one list that's got me named, and I've done nothing for that for years. Supervisor's always been appointed legal, intergovernmental, almost like a resident agent in a sense, but really, we've tried to go back and find history and support for it, find nothing. I wouldn't care if you eliminated it altogether. I've never met with myself, and it's never come about. So Dan, maybe you've been here 35 years, what?
We started with Supervisor Pilgrim, and it's been supervisor since, and never been at special army before. Because of mentioned cable, we're curious if one of the older cable contracts, before they went to the uniform video one, was it required in one of those contracts to have that person, but other than that, we don't know any for support now.
So you would give preference to staff?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, would it make everyone feel better if I wasn't appointed in that role?
I would make a, so that, I guess, 3 cards, that I would be listed as the alternate on the services committee, that I would not be listed on the WCET board, and that the legal committee, or whatever we call it, is actually disbanded from my existence.
there a second?
That I would be,
Alternate on services.
yep, that I would be taken off of the WCET board. And that legal is essentially not going to. It doesn't include.
Your requirement on how many people.
I was gonna ask that too, good question. Two, okay.
You do not have to be trustee.
Well, there's a motion, is there a second? Second. Anyone have a great desire to be for it? That's you.
That means anybody in the crowd too, right? Because you said they don't have to be on the board.
You have to represent the township, so, if you don't fill that spot, then the rest will still stay on.
We need to, if you want.
I would be open to it too, Jim.
John, I think that you're a good
Yeah,
fit
kinda
there.
has
You
worked
have had
with that,
passion for WCET before.
You okay with that?
I would do it.
You got a heart for anything, well,
Patrick and John, which I thought was good because, you're supposed to be school representative too, so he's really got.
okay, so it's been moved and seconded. An amendment to that motion would be to place John there on WC. Or a second to that motion.
I will just modify my motion. That's right. It's just, instead of just taking it off, it's to put John in my place.
Okay, all right. Second.
We're getting a lot of practice on the roll tonight, Mr. Clerk.
Yeah. By disqualifying your motion, Catherine, you mean to withdraw then placing yourself as alternate in my place on services?
No, I'm not.
Any legal?
No, I was essentially clarifying that
Okay.
because we have to have two people instead of just removing me, that it would be to replace
All right,
myself.
so it's a clarification of her motion, and it was seconded, right? All right, so it's on the floor, she clarified, and I assume you who seconded it have a problem with that clarification. Who seconded? Oh, I'm sorry,
Yes.
Ryan, okay, Ryan, second. All right, so, any more discussion on that point?
Let me see, I read that motion back.
It is to add Katherine Henry instead of Jim Winningham as the alternate. Is to expand the legal. Whatever that. And then take Katherine Henry off and put Josh Schwab. For WC.
All right, go ahead, call roll.
Supervisor?
Yes.
Clerk is yes. Treasurer?
Yes.
Sidewalk?
Yes.
Keeping score of one, that was our first unanimous vote. Was that two? All right.
Actually, no.
All right. Now, with all of that and all the various amendments to my original motion, are you ready to vote at this time?
I call for the question.
Yes. What's that?
I call for the question.
You call for the question, okay. All right, so, would you take roll on that?
And this is the
The police list, yes.
With all the changes
amendments.
received.
Quick,
We're all
doing
amendments.
that now. Currently, who's on?
Who's on first?
If you want us to do a quick rundown, finances plus Ryan minus John. Election, you have plus Catherine minus John, utilities plus John minus Catherine. CDA is plus Mike minus Ryan. CDA is plus Gary. Then utilities is minus Mike plus Catherine. And then you have services, as the alternate plus Catherine minus Jim. WCT minus Catherine plus John. Legal is
I got lost along the way, but I trust someone who's listening.
I think if I keep John and Brian are, would be services if we don't further amend it, and then I would be listed as the alternate on services.
The one committee that we haven't affected, but yeah, that is how currently.
Yeah, hit services, yeah. I was gonna ask if we could just give a list of election committee. Here are the board members that are on it, president plus minus.
I'll go write down the list as I have it, and then you can tell me if anybody thinks that it's correct. Planning commission is Gary. BDA is Michael. Construction is Gary. And then the second page, election is Ryan, Catherine, and myself. We did not make any changes to the disaster assessment. Legal has been eliminated. We did not make any changes to the historical. WCET is Michael and John. We did not make any changes to the FOIA coordinator. Utilities is currently Catherine, John, Gary, with Jim as the alternate. Services is Becky, John, Ryan, with Catherine as the alternate. And finance is Jim, Michael, and Brian, with John Strong as the alternate. No, but I want you to tell me if that was correct.
That's all right. Okay. Now, let's go. You're always going to start with you, right?
Yeah, we're gonna go right around the horn.
My question would be, so we never address services, and we want to address services, we give it as is.
Well, question, right? I thought that meant that I could not. I'm comfortable with services.
I am also.
Is there anyone who's uncomfortable with services?
Are you, I know your name was on one of them originally, one of the lists, regardless of whose list upon what, but are you interested in being on services?
To me, it doesn't matter, go to every single meeting, and I don't get paid.
Having said that, John, he's opened the door to you if you feel like you have too much.
No, I enjoy being on service.
Very good. Okay. All right, and now people have spoken about services, yes. All right. Let's do that. Let's take the,
Supervisor,
yes.
yes. Treasurer,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Mayor Dillon, yes. Thank you.
Objections, okay.
With reservation. All right. That's item 12. Item 12 is over. Item 13, sidewalk waiver request for 44th Street. Is there a motion to either grant or deny the sidewalk waiver request for 44th Street as spoken to tonight by Mr. Barr?
I'll make a motion to approve the sidewalk waiver request for 44th Street on property identified as 303.
Support. Moving support. Discussion.
I can understand and value some of the comments. Like, I was going to point about that topic, but I do have some concerns. Sidewalk is one of those things that, my husband and I have both served on different committees and we were in different communities, in a different community. We served on planning commission and ZBA. We certainly had a sidewalk that was nowhere argument or whatever, in right parcels of land. To me, this one's different in that when I have driven past there and then gone back and looked on Google Maps about this, first of all, as far as you guys see, I'm not touching it, right? So,
You're further down the end of the table than we typically sit, and I think that this might complain that we need a visit.
be a little closer to you and I, okay? It's on TV though, so it's okay. Anyway, my concern, I'm just trying to think of some of the things that were talked about, which I don't think there was really anything, shocking or new that came out of the conversation today so much as it was, there were all things that were brought about in the application. But when I saw the discussion about how the south side south side of the street, that would have the sidewalks. Is there no map that was part of the, I didn't remember the entire packet today, but if there was a map, I guess I would ask, maybe we could put that up, might be easier for, but if not,
I can spell it out. There's sidewalks on the north side starting at 8th Avenue going to the west.
yes.
And then they're on the south side starting at 8th going to the so people can cross there.
Right, so my concern though is, without really being able to visually point at things, and that, can we pull it out so we can see, yeah, just a little bit more. So we have some apartments, back in there, and we have, that one long row is, condominiums, that I actually built a house, or kind of there, still in the area. At any rate, there's a significant amount of people that, although the entrance or exit to their particular community might not end up like down there, where you can see that gray bubble, that's clearest. You do have a lot of people that are needing to get to places, and so you have Burger King is actually where the word steak is, and you have Steak and Shake. Oh. So Burger King is right here, and you have Panera Bread, Steak and Shake right there. So you have, restaurants and things. You have Walmart down here, not on the map, but it's not going to show because Google Maps wasn't apparently didn't update it since whatever it's called. But it's a gas station that has. It's not just a tiny little gas station. It has a lot of different things and essentially groceries, depending on how you cook or don't cook. So my concern is that there's sidewalk that essentially is right here and nothing is, right here. But again, it's not a discussion about a sidewalk that would go nowhere. So if this were like the end of whatever, and then all of a sudden it's industrial, it'd be a totally different conversation. But we also have a ton of houses that are up in here as well. And so I've seen, for example, this sidewalk, I'm just someone that likes to walk a lot. And so to me, when I've driven past that, and I used to work at a school not that far that way, that every single day I was driving on 44th Street. And all through the winter, this particular sidewalk, for one reason or another, it just seemed like the way that the winds would blow and everything, it was really not passable. Even if somebody went out there and had shoveled it, just the way that it being on the south side and the way that there's a lot of trees, all of this is totally lined with trees. None of it's open at all, not until you get around to the bend and you have that neighborhood. And so it's not really something that's, even though I think it's a much wider, it might even be a 6-foot sidewalk in parts of that. It always seemed to have some sort of, huge pile of snow or ice or whatever. And I don't think it was necessarily any part of the way that the wind would blow there. And so here, if we're gonna say that this property is not going to be required to have sidewalk, then we are forever essentially including people that might be right here. Now maybe the people way up here can go ahead and cross, but again, I have concerns about this part of the sidewalk on the south side. I never noticed an issue anywhere along here with that part of the sidewalk. But I would have a concern about the people that are over here that might be trying to get over to Walmart because it's, going to be a place where people might need to get some supplies. But also right here as well, that if we're precluding this area, then we're just never going to have, basically it's starting the trend that none of this will ever need to have a sidewalk. And I have huge reservations about that because of the, the type of home communities that are back in here and back over here that people on either side would need to get to, either this gas station that really does have quite a bit of amenities, or down here to Walmart, and to cross 44th Street, especially when you have the S-curve thing going on right here, and people are just getting past the light and getting up to 55 miles an hour, you're not gonna be, to me, it's insufficient. It's totally irrelevant to say there's a sidewalk on the other side of the street. Because you're not gonna be able to, if you came out right here and you were trying to get down here, you're not gonna be able to simply cross 44th Street. And, you know, so to get, and really then to get to, if somebody's coming out right here, whether you're trying to go this way, or whether you're trying to go this way, so whether you're going to Kenmore or whether you're going to Abe, you're essentially left with zero way to get to a sidewalk at all, the way it currently sits. You know, so I'm concerned about people that, you know, I don't walk that area myself, but I do have concerns about all of the people that live right here who need to get to those places, and the whole reason why we have the sidewalk ordinances. So I would just have a huge concern that by precluding that this whole section wouldn't have a sidewalk, we're forever saying then that, because of course, then if it's being developed specifically with that exception in mind, it wouldn't be appropriate at some point later on to say, well, hey, 10 years down the road, you know, you built something really awesome, but we're gonna go ahead and try to get you a sidewalk now. You're forever doing that, so.
Concerns duly noted. Duly noted. Anyone else have thoughts about this?
My thought would be that my opinion has changed on this one. As I said to your public comment, this was originally denied and it's not coming back. For all the reasons that you're stating, my opinion was to deny this waiver request previously. The thing that has changed for me is as we've been working on sidewalk options other places in the township, I've seen some estimates for how expensive it is to put sidewalks in with the dramatic elevation changes. And so what has changed for me is I feel like it is cost prohibitive for them to put the sidewalks in. And my guess is that development of this area might hinge on that. So if we deny the waiver and say you have to put sidewalks in if you're going to develop it, then my guess is that there's a decent chance that they then wouldn't develop it, so sidewalks still wouldn't get put in. Or we can approve the waiver so it would get developed.
You know, you just mentioned that you know, when I hear the term cost prohibitive, typically in an application, I would expect that there would have been some sort of indication about what that cost is. So I'm really shocked to see it not in there. Do you know?
Well, I think that it isn't on the township board to have produced that, and so maybe the gentleman that was here talking about it.
On the application.
Yeah, but when we were talking about sidewalks on Fort Sheldon, way on the other side of the township, I just remember looking at estimates and saying, whoa, when they're talking about it being cost prohibitive for elevation changes, that is a significantly larger cost than I ever would have guessed. And I don't have those numbers in front of me, but that past experience is what has changed my mind and is the reason that I made the motion to approve it this time around. So I'm firmly against it.
And what I asked, on the other side of the road, when the pavement was put in, was that done by the township? Because it's consistent all the way up. I always felt the township did that with a grant, maybe the bridge was put.
The large section was under the township.
Okay, but most of it is asphalt, paid for by the township on the side of the road.
Trail paper.
And then,
I was gonna say, as to the cost, I only did it a year ago, but I was $250,000 per bill in sidewalk. Ballpark.
Probably and to follow up on Patrick's comment, if there's no waiver, the property will continue.
And that was one of the concerns I had on utility, that meeting. But because of the cost and also the fact that Sunnybrook, their golf course, actually there's a tunnel that goes under the 4th Street there. That elevation change, you know what I'm Okay, so that just gives you an idea of the elevation change. So for what Sunnybrook was spent to put in, if they were forced to put in Road sidewalk would literally be in the millions, because they would either have to fill or some sort of pylons and elevated.
It would be cheaper for Sunnybrook to run a sidewalk to their tunnel and have people cross across and then get off the sidewalk on the other side. Probably.
Right. I mean,
Then for
so
them to
because
put
I'm
in
one
an
of those that
elevated
like sidewalks to nowhere, but it's one of those that is just because of the cost of what that would be. Never happened. No. The one.
Anyone else wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I understand you got apartments and everything there. There's a crosswalk at Town and Fourth Street, but they gotta get across to Walmart. Is there a gas station there? The brick station is on this corner. If the 8th Avenue residents want to use that, they can go down. There's no sidewalks on 8th Avenue either, so those individuals are still walking on the side of the road. We have quite a few sidewalks in nowhere in this township. There's one along Chicago Drive that Sunset Manor put in Waterford. Down in the gully there, you can look at it sometime. It's all full of trees.
That produced Chad Tuttle on this board right there.
What's that?
That produced Chad Tuttle right there, yeah.
Yeah, well, we didn't make them build up any ground to put that sidewalk. It's down at least 8 feet from the top of the road. So, I mean, there's been precedents that we've had waivers. I think that property would be very difficult. I drove by it. I know that piece of property. I think it'd be very difficult and very, very expensive to put a sidewalk in there. I could just give you the cost estimate of running factory sidewalks 5 foot wide, ballpark, and that's if the grade is perfect. It's ready to go from $30 a running foot. I don't know how much frontage they got there, but you can start running math. That's not fill, that's not excavating, that's not getting it ready. So.
Actually, no, I can't start running that. I have no idea, I have no estimate at all what that $30 would have been.
That's just concrete. That's just the concrete of putting the sidewalk in. That's not any excavating yet.
Well, and this is where your area of expertise would be helpful, but you're assuming there's a lot of other pieces that maybe someone like me would just know. I mean, so that I was gonna ask you, did I hear you right to say 250,000 was a number that?
On the right side.
But the number that I heard was correct, it's 250,000. Okay. Do you think that would be, does that sound about right, at least on a minimum level to you, or?
I would say the way things are going now is low,
Okay.
to be honest with you. I'm watching street costs and all these other things right now. They've been going up astronomically in the last year or so. So I would say 250 grand on that sidewalk would be low. Because the problem is when you bring fill in, if you got 11 feet of fill, you don't just go to the edge of the sidewalk and drop down. You got to bring 11 feet of fill so it runs out a ways away to back up that sidewalk so the water doesn't wash the sidewalk out. You're talking a lot of excavating and a lot of monkeying to get that ready. And that's assuming that soil's decent there. If they got to take out bad soil, I don't remember what that piece was years ago, but if they got to under excavate the poor dirt out of there to put in good dirt, that's going to be more expensive. I mean, there's a lot of, I understand why the developer hasn't given us a lot of information, and part of it's because there's a lot of cost involved just to get that information. But just ballparking it, I guess it's an expensive endeavor.
Mr. Supervisor, could we call for a vote?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment myself. I'm glad to hear that we have proponents of sidewalks. We have many in this board that are proponents. In fact, a member of great political pain, making them put sidewalks in on 8th Avenue there going to the north and having 50, 60, 100 people in this room, all unhappy, but I think now grateful in the long run. So yeah, we have proponents of sidewalks here. It'd be great for those of you who are on utilities because you get to talk about these a lot. And just because you grant a waiver doesn't mean that you permanently prohibited the township from requiring it in the future. So understand that as well. And maybe over the next 4 years, the committee, the utilities committee will recommend some bold action to the board in terms of greater walkability, accessibility within the township. It's certainly something I already know, and I know that you have. But we've also experienced enough of these where you can kind of start to recognize the ones that just politically and timing wise it's going on. So, let's just say
I would like to make one comment. I'll make this to, and I don't know if I can do this or not, but if I were the developer and he got a waiver for this property, I would look for a way to wherever he puts there to get some sort of access to maybe the exit of the apartments there. So there is a way to walk across those parking lots to Walmart so that, okay, I don't have a sidewalk in front of my property, but at least this property can have access to be able to get to where all the parking lots hooked together all the way back to Kennel. If you can probably, I know Green Ridge Realtors, there's a few other commercial buildings in there, but it's just something to think about. When you start looking at bringing a proposal for some sort of a project.
Good, okay.
Joel has a comment.
Oh,
If I may, when this was originally proposed a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we suggested that the development of this would include a walking trail around the perimeter of the property to be accessible. So we are sensitive to the need for a walking trail. That's going to be a sizable cost. Now, it doesn't mean it needs to be a 6-foot trail, but it's a walking trail around the perimeter. But having a walking trail around a 22-acre parcel, not a bad idea.
Virgin. Okay. All right, let's just take this by voice vote. We don't need a roll call. That's right, Dan? It's not a roll call. All right, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Is the I to approve the waiver?
I'm sorry, yes, to approve the waiver. The motion before you is to grant the waiver. Yes, thank you. Yep. And anyone opposed? All right, so that's a motion to grant the sidewalk waiver is passed. Item 14, amended Michigan Mutual Aid Box Alarm System Association. Anyone wish to place a motion before the board? All right, I will move that we approve this agreement.
Support.
Support. I had a chance to talk to the chief at length about this. We'd like to have him here tonight. It wasn't able to happen, but he explained to me how we used to be part of an agreement. It couldn't even require you to go state to state. So we dropped out of that agreement. There are a couple other things too that he didn't like about it. He's wanting to re-enter it at this point because it gives you such flexibility. He said it gives you protection. It gives you greater liability protection when you do aid. That we were limited to the surrounding county system, not going to Detroit or Bay City or whatever to respond to a call. Ottawa, yeah, community adjacent, right, communities, and as you saw, it's terminable with notice. I think everything else to that effect. We talked about it like he said, this is something we do for one another. This is a better way to do it than they've done in the past. Right protection and what have you, and more order to it. And so, for what it's worth, that's the chief's perspective in a nutshell. Anybody wish to address the motion that's before you?
Clarification, you said 14, I want to how we started talking about what I'm seeing is marked as 15, but this is, the motion was on the Michigan Mutual Aid Box.
Yep.
So apparently that was, yeah, okay. So I didn't notice that.
Jumped over.
Did I jump over one?
No, so there was one that was on our November 23 agenda that was not listed on our November 30th agenda, security cameras, which was item 14 last week.
Okay.
And then was not included in tonight's.
Okay.
So now we're on item 14. On the November 23 agenda, item 14 was security cameras.
Okay.
That item does not appear on this tonight. So, so everything has been misnumbered or has been renumbered.
Okay. So the motion is properly before you as to the amended Michigan Mutual Aid Box. Questions, comments?
I just thought there was, I mean, it's not, especially in the 25 and a lot of review, but considering, several people being new, even that, really, it's just a lot that we've been considering tonight, and my concern is to rush into any contract, but it just feels like there is, albeit not that many pages, maybe 13, but my concern is that there's enough here that we should have a little bit more time to digest this. And whether it be in the very next meeting, or whatnot, it just, there was some big, there were some items that I think are of significant concern enough that I would ask that really look at it. Say, this is one of those things that I would want people to go, "Oh, they don't have that."
So I'm gonna take that as a motion to table this. Is there a second for that motion? Anyone? Okay, there's a motion and supported to table that item. Discussion about the decision whether.
I'm a little concerned with,
Actually, I don't think you
No
can.
discussion, there's no discussion. Okay, so it's tabled, it's to support. All right, okay, all right. Thank you for that reminder. So item number 14, table.
We need to vote.
Oh, okay,
Vote to table.
all right, let's vote to table. Voice vote, all in favor, say aye.
can we vote?
You want to vote? Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Go ahead, Brian.
we can't make a comment.
Now is the time to make a comment.
My concern.
Oh, okay, all right.
It's not a roll call vote, it's just. But I can call a roll call.
So, somebody wants to. It's true enough, Dan. I mean, I don't have to, but it may. So, someone's requested that. Do you want to call our roll?
We're gonna set up, go the other way.
Wait, yes. I mean, wait. What was the first?
Yes, it's your motion.
Okay, I want to.
No.
No.
Yes.
Okay, 4-3, item is tabled. Item 15, proposed secondary subdivisions resurfacing for 2021. You all received the list. I was highlighted for you. I just want to comment again for those who are newer. You'll see a list like this each year. Oftentimes it'll come up through the utilities committee. Without getting too deep in the weeds, we have county responsibility for our roads. They will fund our primary roads in their resurfacing, sometimes enlargement from time to time, and they have a running schedule so many years out, so we can see those coming. But they do not, as the county, and they haven't for a number of years, had sufficient funds to take care of our lesser streets, if you will. And that's true not just in Georgetown, but of other townships and so on within the county. Consequently, if you don't plan well, you don't budget well, you have roads fall in disrepair. If you want to hear from your constituents quickly, let your roads fall in disrepair. I'm proud of this township, and long before I was ever here, the cycle and the path on which they put the township to allocate significant dollars each year above and beyond what the county would do to take care of our roads in such that we are on a 15 to 20 year cycle. And that's not bad. If you've driven these roads like I have, and you looked at the ones that are on here as well as the ones like Coconut and the ones that are next to come up, you know what? They're not terrible. And the point isn't to wait until they are terrible until you lose your car to pothole. They're to take care of these things where you have to completely redo them. So we've got a good system. It's not to say that, from time to time, each year you might say, there's this road that thing's being overlooked. It's really important. And it's in terrible repair, and I think we're missing it. But if that happens, then we look at maybe removing a road. But again, I'm very grateful as one who drives the roads like you do that this is well budgeted and well supported, and over time it's really kept things, I think, pretty in the township. So that being said, are there comments, questions, or otherwise about this, or do you wish to put a motion in front of the board first, and then we can start discussion about it?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal in amount of $1,531,844.95, which includes the roads that were highlighted in green in our packet through Yorkdale.
Support. Okay, it's been moved and supported. And discussion.
I was actually able to spot check. I was $1,000 of these.
Yeah.
Any of the other ones. And basically, spot out especially Rogers Drive, Center Industrial. I guess my one question would be, roads need sanitary sewer? How are those handled? They have to have sewer before they would be able to get redone?
Of late, and again, you correct me, Dan, I think we've sort of put them on a path of waiting to resurface and thinking that there could be this investment made in the infrastructure there, right, with the sewer and so on, and not wanting to tear up good road. But I think the question maybe that he's really asking beyond that is, so what if you never put it in, or forced to put it in, how long do you make them wait?
That'll be something the board would have to address. The board made the decision that we didn't want to put money into sewer, streets that need sewer. And they were going to have sewer installed, so that time, might have been a few years, they were just not going to be as realistic for the board change. Some status. So yes, they're held down. So it's sewer, they get such a deterioration or at that time. The attempt was to then install sewer, or reviewed at that time. Now, this board may change their mind, but that's kind of how we're operating based on the previous policy.
I do agree that some of the roads are, not in the greatest shape, but I have a significant concern, especially hearing that there's a 20-year cycle. There's only 2 roads on the proposal that are older than the year 2000. All of them are newer. Several of them, the last go-round of material, if you will, was actually placed during new construction. And we have roads that are as new, I think, there's several that are as new as 2007. And so knowing what I know about, different areas in the township, there's different ways, you can look at a project like this. You can look at it in terms of, what's going to be the cheapest, because we have an estimate on costs for resurfacing that. So you can just say, well, we want to do as many roads as we possibly can every year, so we'll just go with the cheapest and until our budget runs out, doing those roads that way. You can do it based on, simply by the township rating, which is that we're given here, because this list does not go verbatim by the township rating. And then another way, just based on how the information was presented to us here, would be to go by the year that it was last resurfaced. And so to save everybody a headache on that, my point of conversation stems from that. So I actually have printed up the different versions, if you will, of looking at it that way. I have extra copies if anybody from the public wants to look at this. I also put it on my website just to make sure if we ran out that if people wanted to look, they can find it. I'll make sure. Anybody want to?
Dan, while she's handing that out, could you speak to some of the efficiencies that sometimes play a part in?
I've already, actually, if I could please finish my comment, I already pulled those out. To me, what I wasn't going to try to be, necessarily an expert at my first meeting on the total dollar amount that we're looking at, because again, to me, the biggest struggle, as I kind of voiced earlier, is we, have quite a few pages of financials and understanding the goal within that for each piece, how each dollar is spoken for. So basically, my concern was if we take the dollar amount, under the theory that I'm on the edge of the dead zone, I'm going to just go close to it. If we take the total dollar amount that is proposed, that was in Bethany's motion, it is basically $1,530,000. So each of the different ways, there's infinite ways you can always look at a project when there's this many variables, right? So each of the ones that is shown here on these different things is as close to that dollar amount. So I wasn't trying to change the overall dollar amount. I was just looking at different ways of things here. So, to me, as you can see, I showed what it would look like if we just kind of went with the straight financial situation. And I actually, to Ryan's question, there's also the issue of whether you want to address people that have the sewer issue, of whether they've put in sewer or not, or there's even a house. I think one property that keeps showing up that was taken off because there's no houses on that. But essentially, there's three main ways to look at it if you don't account for those. And so to me, if you're looking at, you're looking at the condition. We have two different measures here about what the condition is. And I don't disagree that there are roads on this list that are in bad shape. But if you look at parts of Coconut, or you look at Michael Court, or Kevin Court, or Michael Drive, or some of these other ones that are from 1993 or 1998 or 1997, and they were resurfaced back then. They weren't even new construction back then. It's obvious to see why they need to be done and why they should have been done before. Whereas, you look at the ones that are proposed, and most of them, except all of them, I think, are actually 2000 and newer. Many of them are like 2007, 2006. Several of them were new construction at the time, and most of them are actually all in the same neighborhood, which if we saw the map up from the last discussion on sidewalks, it actually would show, because a lot of them are between Kennewa and A, south of 44th Street, and that's a fairly new, relatively new area. So in my looking at things, of visually looking at the streets involved, as well as looking at what seems realistic, and I did not know the 15 or 20 year cycle, but my concern is based on what the streets actually look like, and why, looking at the year they were last resurfaced, I would have a huge concern with going, for those reasons, with the particular homes that were on the green proposed list. Instead, it would seem more appropriate to go with the year they were last resurfaced, and you'll see they very naturally, you are getting the ones that have, 4 ratings, and the cost is not, it's not such that the cost is so much more for doing those roads that all of a sudden, instead of doing, 35 roads, now all of a sudden you're going to do only 12. It's actually very comparable. So if you went with the age, it would be, 31 roads is what you would cover. You'd actually come in 10,000 under budget from the proposal. So that's, I guess, where I'm at with it. I think there's enough poor roads around the community that are much older than all these other roads that are in worse condition. They're resident, I mean, not just residential, but residential where you always see a ton of kids running around. I mean, my daughter said to me at one point about having been on one of these roads, and she said, well, Mom, I really want to learn, my 6-year-old was saying this, Mom, I really want to learn how to be an expert on rollerblading on bumpy roads. And I'm like, honey, that's not a thing. Like, no one's an expert on rollerblading or bumpy roads. You don't have to learn that. So to me, I think it'd be more important that we take a really hard look at this information and consider doing the older roads first.
Katherine, when you put together this proposal, did you share it with Dan and ask how we came about with the original proposal? Was there a discussion with him and about your feelings before we got
I didn't see Dan's name on the proposal, so I didn't know Dan was the one that put it together. No, I didn't ask Dan about
it?
it.
Would be for history or you got our information?
I don't need history. I looked at the roads themselves. I looked at the communities I looked at them on Google Maps. I looked at them physically and drove on them and walked on them. Not every single one, but on quite a few of them. And the ones that are older, by and large, are in at least the same poor condition, if not poorer, in reality, to the ones that are all built in 2000, or redone in 2000, 2007, that kind of thing. So to me, regardless of who put it together, it's not a personal thing. I don't care what the history is. I know what the roads are now, And there's been a problem with how the lists were put together before, in my opinion. I don't want to go into all the details of that. I don't think it's relevant. I just think going forward, we need to make sure that we're looking at resurfacing ones that need it the most. And in my opinion, that's what it would be. It would be the oldest ones that are really in bad shape.
If there's anyone
So
here,
are you asking us to turn down staff's proposal?
Yes, I would have to do that, yeah.
and here's what I suggest, if there's someone here who wants to engage in a serious discussion about this and entertain what she suggests, then you can go. Because I think given the hour, if we're gonna go through road by road with a new group and a new word that none of us has seen yet, it might be best served to discuss that at the next meeting. If you're not so moved, then we'll continue. Throw that out there.
I'd be willing to make a motion.
All right, is there a second to that motion? Okay. There'll be no discussion on that. And, my resident Robert's rules, Kathy. All right, so let's take a vote on the decision to table the road resurfacing. Keep in mind, we want to be sure to take this up soon enough because they start splitting out their contract. So, all in favor of the motion to table, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
All right, it passes 4-3. All right, so we'll go on then to item.
Jim, will this go to you for recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, that would be logical, but I'm not sure. I mean,
That's the pleasure. I think we already have a proposal. We would love to get this approved at our next meeting.
Yeah.
Because the road commission did letting.
Yep.
Just two bid lettings. We'd like to be on early. Sure. So.
Yep, so between now and 2 weeks from now, please be meeting.
Now that we know who it is, we'll attend that meeting.
I expect we'll talk about it there and then we'll talk about it.
Brad put the list together here and he personally inspected the list. Has a lot of reasons why he chose certain ones together, so that can all be explained.
So could he be, would he normally be present or could he be present at that?
He would be, yes. He would be, yes.
What's that? I was going. Yep. And feel free, obviously, Rob, you've done, I think we've all helped, but Rob's done a lot as well with that. Feel free to lead off on one like that in the future to say, you know what, I'd like to. Okay. Item number 16, 2021 Granite Express legal publication rates, which have not changed from previous years. Is there a motion to approve those? So moved.
Support.
Supported. Fewer and fewer options of where we can publish legal notices. Reality of present day. Any discussion on that point?
I have some questions.
Okay.
How many do we typically, would we submit in a calendar year, do you know?
It varies greatly based on how many applications we receive every prior notification.
Do you know what we're at so far in 2020?
I don't have the top of my head now. I know we have to publish them. The board simply has to choose the paper of general circulation that they want. If they want to choose a different one, the board can do so, although there's not a lot of choices. So we don't have any flexibility when there's no competition. And a lot of requirements to publish.
Are there any that, and I'm sorry, I didn't reread this part of the meeting packet before we commit. I don't recall there being any reference that were any identified that were would be choices. Like this was the only one that was identified for us, right?
The board identified Granite Express as the paper of general circulation in the township, so unless you get another paper that we can make the prices on.
Right, I mean, nothing else was mentioned in the packet. I didn't miss
Right.
that. Okay.
Yes.
That's all the questions I have.
Okay. All in favor? We place the motion out there, right?
Yes.
Yes, I don't know. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Motion is carried. Item 17, for those of you who hung in there, second public comment period, as I said earlier, 3 hours ago, you have the opportunity now to speak to anything that you wish. And John, I can see in your eyes, even with that mask on, that you're going to say something. So why don't you kick us off, John? Welcome.
Whoa. On page 70,
very much.
7869 Parkside Court. Obviously, some of you know me, a few of you don't. Up until the past year, I've been a lot of work. Actually, in 2012, I ran for trustee, but got 200 more votes than I did. Since then. Some of you have actually been in my house. Mike, Ryan, and earlier today. So I know some of you. Others, I would like to congratulate the trustees. And Gary. And Kathy. Brian. And Mike Bosch, who's in position. I like the fact that the consent agenda is broken out. There's been times always really recommend if you go over every item instead of just consent. There's been times in the past that it was just like everything is passed. And there's been times I asked something to be taken off of consent agenda, but and it was. But I think that it's very important that you don't just lump a bunch of stuff. And I like the due diligence of the comments.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, John. Anyone else? All right, be sure to list your name and address. 3 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you. I want to say thank you for several things. First, I'm now on the board. I'm Sandy Bloom Roskian. I'm a recent resident of Georgetown Township, 2487 Cedar West Drive. I've been attending the board via Zoom for the last year or so, well, since March anyway. And I certainly appreciate all of the time. I know it's a thankless job. You don't hear from us unless there's a problem, someone's unhappy. And I've served on boards before, and I know that it takes a lot of time and a lot of reading, a lot of research. And so I certainly appreciate all of your time. So I wanted to thank you for that. I also wanted to thank you for the way that you've conducted these meetings. You've been very respectful over the last year. I've seen that there's been agreement, but they've been handled in a different way. And I think at the end of the day, after there have been disagreements, there's a vote, we all come together and we support the vote that's been taking place. I attended last week via Zoom, and then tonight, and I just want to say that I am a little saddened to see how it's gotten into making this. And I hope this isn't the next 6 years kind of a thing. I appreciate all of your time, but I do want to remember that the purpose of this board is to make a positive difference in the members and the residents of Georgetown Township. I feel like that's the reason you're voting here, and I hope that we continue that same purpose going
Margaret. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the second public comment period. Did I go too quick? No. All right. Item 18, discussion and general information. I alluded to this before as sort of a catch-all on that. It might be, hey, I'm attending the, this conference coming up. I'm going to be sitting in this workshop. I think honestly, it's something board, by the way, something I'd like to maybe refer to a committee or we're going to talk about as a board. We will be having 2 meetings, it sounds like, each month, all right? And there will be a lot of opportunities, both in subcommittees as well as in the boards for discussion points. So, in the hour tonight, be kind to us. There's certainly things to find out. Let's remember we can also keep generating thoughts and
haven't had a chance. I saw the lights down there, but not lit up downtown. I didn't see that. Amazed what Allendale has done. I'm not sure the money behind that or, but Allendale is incredible. But downtown area is looking beautiful. A lot of very, very positive comments. People are proud of that.
Moving across the front, you don't have to say anything. Welcome.
Yeah, I just,
Yep. Go
I
ahead.
brought up earlier the property purchase that we're looking at.
Right.
By Maplewood Lake. I talked to Dan about that today, and I understand that there's a purchase agreement we've been working on already, and it's close to being finalized. I do have some concerns about that purchase. First off, I think we paid way too much money for it. That property's worth what we're giving for it. I also have concerns there's no end game to that piece of property. If you're going to purchase it, I think there should be costs put together and what that property is going to be used for, how much money we're going to spend to update it. There's a lot of issues with that piece of property. And I can address those things because I worked that piece of property when I was a kid. I weeded onions there for Jake Nine Eyes. I grew up on Cypress Street when they dug Maplewood Lake. But I mean, I know a lot about that property. I know about the gas line that runs in between Maplewood Park and that property, which is going to be a difficult thing to be able to join. We're not going to be able to put anything across it, per se, because I built a lot of condominiums alongside that same property, that same pipeline, and they have a ton of rules, and I know them rules, because I've had to build steps within 25 feet of that thing, and there will be a guy that will show up and explain to you what the rules are. So I'm just saying, it seems like that thing was decided upon last minute, to buy that, and I just am a little concerned that we spent too much money on that piece of property. I do that for a living, I buy and sell property, and, I'm going down the road, from what I understand the dam, we're already into the contract, that thing, but I don't see a plan what we're gonna do with that. And how much it's gonna cost to do whatever you want to do.
I'm not sure if you're asking any of us who voted for it to quit ourselves, but I'll give you just a quick comment, at least from my own perspective.
Sure.
Which was, it was the long game. That is, if you look at the topography, look at and the idea is that piece is part sort of like Ottawa County's done, albeit at a much grander scale with a lot of private and public involvement along the Grand River. The idea being that we sort of have a strip of green going across. It could eventually go all the way to Bauer, potentially over time, in the future board, all the way across through Maplewood up to Baldwin, across Baldwin, through Woodcrest, and then eventually over. I'm not sure how far where it might join, but possibly maybe talk about Guelph or something of that nature. But I can only speak for myself and say it seemed like an opportunity to just add a piece to that puzzle, which doesn't seem to have an immediate effect other than there it is and you own it. But I'm sure that's not persuadable. I'm just saying that's at least the rationale in terms of my view of the long run. I'd really love to preserve some green space. We're building. I know that will be built there.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but you do realize that the same neighbors that live next to that property will have a zoning official if they let their yard go to weeds, and now you're gonna have 30 acres of weeds. I mean, it's like, what do there's no plan for it. So that's my thing. We spent $335,000 on 30 acres, and you're gonna spend $1.3 million trying to do something with it. And I'm like, that's a $1.6 million expenditure, but nobody wants to talk about the 1.3. So that's my, and that's a little bit of my concern with the Zoom meetings too. I don't think that the public even knows you guys are buying that piece of property. So.
Yep. So a little bit of water under the bridge, but duly noted, and I don't suspect you go for something like that while you're on the board.
Not for that price.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we don't buy property.
Sure.
I'm just saying if a farmer bought that for $3,000 an acre, the farmer 10 years from now, you came over and you offered him $7,000 an acre, you'd be all happy about it. You get $5,000 an acre. That's what's worth. So when you look at it from because that's all it's good for, a farm. I mean, you can put a park on it, but it's good for nothing else. It's not developable. It's farm ground. It'll rent for about $200 an acre on a good day. So mean, the Dionysus family's gonna come out real well on that piece of property, but I just don't, I think that we overstep.
Right? Thank you, and I respect them, but glad for your expertise here.
Well, to be honest with you,
from you, yeah.
we're the board that's gonna end up, I'm gonna be on the board that's gonna sign the paper to buy that property, when another board approves it.
You won't have to sign it.
I,
We're near close.
well, I'm still here,
Yeah, you're here at the time that it closed, and I get your point.
that's correct.
Yeah.
At closing, I'm the board member.
You have plausible deniability here, you have nothing to do with it.
That's why it's on record right now.
Everybody who asked me, I'll tell everybody who asked me.
Make sure it's in the minutes.
All right,
My one thought for discussion is, my first board meeting 4 years ago, someone, probably John and his infinite wisdom, gave me the advice to connect with Dan, and do a township tour. And on a cold, late fall day, Dan and Rod took me around town and we went inside of a water tower and we looked at heights of different fire hydrants and talked about why they're placed where they are and looked at different sidewalk options and visited the fire department, and stopped at the police department and a lot of those, they gave me this wonderful guided tour around town that helped give me a good knowledge base. So John, thank you for telling me that 4 years ago because it was a great experience. My one regret is that I didn't dare climb the water tower that day. But it was because I was having a baby and nobody knew that yet. But I would maybe like to now. And so I just wanted to pass that advice along to the other new board members. Dan gives a great tour. And I've got a lot of really great pieces to add to those conversations. We had toured the library too, but it was the old one, so they could take you in the library behind the scenes pieces. Just don't hesitate to reach out to them for something like that because it was very informational and eye-opening and then gave me a good context as we had other conversations. I encourage you guys to do the same.
I think that's great advice.
I'll pass it on to somebody else.
I like check inside the water tower, it's tight, man, it's
I'm
tight.
excited for that. So, no, I'm excited for new things and what we have going. I think we'll work together more than not as much animosity moving forward, but yeah, I'm excited for good things moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in preparing for today, it ends up actually tying into something that you just said. In preparing for today, some, laws that are involved and Charter Township or about so it's interesting because I never really realized a couple of, I'd say, glitches that we have that I'd really like to see fixed pretty soon. So in looking at what our charter says, on our website, there's a button that says charter. And then if you click on it, it actually doesn't go to anything about a charter. It goes to the process of the code. It's actually, she page it just looks like this and it doesn't say anything about charter on it other than the word charter township. And so I think maybe when I moved to the area and I looked at that, I was just assuming there was like a technical glitch and I didn't really think more about it. And then now that I'm on the board, I was like, well, I need to have the charter, I need to know what we're supposed to follow. And so it sounds like, based on the questions that I was asking, that we didn't actually adopt our own charter, but perhaps we're following the standard charter, if you will, that's and found in chapter 42 of our state laws. If that's true, I think in all fairness and transparency to the people of our community, we need to have that charter when you click that the link says, we've chosen not to adopt our own charter, but that, we're going along with state laws, specifically found in chapter 42 and some of chapter 41 of our Michigan Code of Laws, because the people also need to have the opportunity to know the rules essentially that they're governed by and that we're governed by being in this community. As a part of that, at the bottom of that process, there's a statement that says in all capital letters that it's telling you that there's going to often be times where, we perhaps, voted on something and for whatever reason it didn't get onto the website. And so in the event that there's a conflict between what's on the website and something that's just on paper. What's in paper typically governs is what it says. And also it talks about that the code online may not reflect rules or other regulations that we've essentially put forth. And that's concerning to me, especially since I was wondering about, I had asked some of the questions that had come out about the sewer line thing, and someone on the board had mentioned to me that there was some sort of rule that had been put in place, so I started digging around. But frankly, it took a lot of digging and clicking to get to the point where I saw that we actually have a whole list of township board policies. There's actually, by my count, 42 that are still currently in force, but a lot of us don't really seem to necessarily, know about that or follow them. For example, one of them says that all of our meetings have to start at 7:30 on the board, but it sounds like they haven't started at 7:30 in a long time. But there's a new board member policy, which I didn't realize until basically before the meeting. Because I would have loved to do that, and I know that Dan's busy, so I kind of asked a couple times while I was here. It's like, send this here, just kind of see if that was like a thing, and he seemed busy, so I was like, I'm not going to push it. And I didn't openly say, hey Dan, would you take me? And he said, no, that's not what happened. But anyway, now that you said that, we have a board policy from 15 years ago that says that the present board members are supposed to conduct an appropriate orientation program designed to acquaint new board members with the township, board policy, duties, and responsibilities. They're supposed to be anyway, it's not very long. It's like 5 or 6 sentences long here, but I was like, wow, that would have been cool. I would have learned a lot of things. And at any rate, so I would value that. I'm glad that you shared that. And so at any rate, I think it's important, though, my point really was, if it was a struggle for me to find the information about what policies we have in place, it's going to be a struggle for anybody in the public who doesn't serve on the board to find that. And so to the extent that we have our code on our website, or, available through a third party, basically by our website, we need to have anything and everything that people are governed by. It needs to be on there. So whether it's considered a board policy or whether there's bylaws to one of our, planning commission or whatever, I feel very strongly that all of that really should be in one place. So you don't have a scenario where you can say, well, this has some, but not all of the rules that the authority has put together. So I would really like to see that that's something that we get on there right away. And my only other concern is that we do seriously consider reenacting any decisions that were made in the October meeting. And again, I don't know exactly what those are, but there were some at least, so that we can make sure that any issue that any member of the public might have had that felt like they didn't know it was out there or didn't have a chance to talk about it, they could get on Zoom or something, or if somebody was slighted by a decision and it ends up being challenged, let's just not even have to go down that road. I would rather see those, reenacted and basically solidified or validated so that it's just not an issue going forward. And that's not something that we could table. That's something that we would have to do in a timely fashion. So those would be my concerns. Obviously, any one of us would much prefer to work in an environment where, we're generally eye to eye. We can have discussions back and forth, that kind of thing, but it's a nice working environment. I think and I think it's very important to have, a respect and camaraderie if you can. We all live in the same community, but I also think it's very important that we all stand true to something that, whether it's something about a property that very well yourself, or whether it's about, something that the Constitution requires of us, that it's something that we take very seriously. And it's okay to be the lone vote on something. I prefer not to always be the lone vote, but I'm okay with the fact that I might have to be, because I respect that everybody might be in that position at some point in time. So, thanks, guys.
I don't think you'll be the lone vote. You won't much tonight. So I think there'll be people speaking with it. All right, motion to adjourn, anybody?
Motion.
Supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Oh, I know, nobody asked to come on.
I went like this, man.
again.